we're doing
Okay.
it live. Tyler said he was gonna switch to Doom from Animal Crossing.
Yes.
Why is there? Oh, it's weird that there's a delay like that on the stream. But
What?
in any
Oh.
case, we are live with special guest and YouTube sensation Metal571.
Oh no.
Reaching the pinnacle, 18K followers. That's a
That's
threshold
more than
that nobody
anybody.
else has achieved,
We're live to go.
except for maybe Zeos.
Yeah. Right.
Too many people on the stream. Oh, virus. Huh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
The social distancing count for everybody in the room. All right, so I'm not sure which episode this is, but we're doing we're getting back on track with the live streams. For this one, I got a bunch of topics that we can talk about, so I'll run through them first, just so you guys who are watching this later on have a sense of where to navigate to. So obviously we're talking with Metal571 here, and so the topics that I'd like to cover is we're going to talk about working from home and what that's changed for people in the headphone world, and talk about some music that we've been listening to lately. We're going to get into the Mastrop versus the world discussion, Mastrop versus Odyssey and other brands controversy. We'll get into a little bit of a technical discussion on a number of different things, including questions about detail retrieval and what that stuff means, and talk about the new Aurorus Audio Borealis that just came out recently, and how that is. Well, we'll talk about that, and then I'd like to focus this stream a little bit more on viewer Q&A. So at the end of all of these discussions, we'll hopefully get a chance to take some more of you guys' questions and answer them. So by all means, leave them if you're in the live chat right now. Leave your questions there, and we'll hopefully be able to get to them. But in the meantime, let me begin by just asking you guys, what's it been like with the changes recently with working from home? I mean, I assume Metal, are you working from home these days, or how you been?
Yeah, full time. We moved everything to work from home because I mean it's without revealing. I mean, I am a software engineer. Most people probably know that already, so that's not that surprising. That it's pretty easy to do from home. So.
Yeah. Has it changed anything for you? Like your life is better, worse?
Not that much. I mean, it is kind of annoying because people are always on Microsoft Teams messaging me, "Hey, I need this thing and I need that thing." And it's like, oh, I'm trying to concentrate, man. Yeah, but no, it's necessary. But we've been okay. We use something that's I think powered by Zoom to communicate at work. So I guess Zoom is being used literally everywhere.
Yes. I bought stock in that when I was a young IPO. Thank you.
You won on that one.
Wow. Yeah, in the chat, just let us know for volume levels and make sure everything is good, and that way it'll be good for the rest of it. So, yeah. For me, not a whole lot has changed with the whole isolation thing. One question, though, that I have had people ask me that has to do with headphones is, if you're... So, for example, right now, there are a bunch of loaner tours that are still going on from Headfi, or, people doing, like, the Discord loaner tours and whatnot. The question is this something that we should be worried about? And I think my answer to that is probably not, especially if it's going longer distances. And also, as long as people are reasonably careful and wash their hands and stuff like that. Coming into contact with one person is the thing that I don't think we would need to be as worried about. It's more, going into big crowds and stuff like that I think would be a bigger issue. So the loaner tours and all of this stuff I think is totally fine. But on that subject, I'm not sure. Did you notice Metal and Tyler? Looks like Olive from Olive's Gadgets is because of this thing is now shutting everything down, and I wonder, like, I would have thought that, yeah, it is a bummer. I mean, I've always loved what he's done. I disagreed a little bit about the value of sound demos and stuff like that, but at the same time, like, I really like what he's been doing and the work that he's been putting into everything. especially with his custom curves and everything, in the way he's actually taking measurements with his own ears, which is kind of unique.
Wait, is he
But
really quitting? Because I thought that was still an
yeah,
April Fool's joke. I
yeah, I
actually
think
still don't know.
that might be an April Fool's joke. But the thing that I thought was interesting about that, I mean, regardless of whether or not that's real, he said he was selling it, all of his gear. So if it is an April Fool's joke, he's incurred a huge burden on his email inbox, because he did put it there. But in any case, what I was thinking about that is, I would have thought that being a headphone reviewer and doing this kind of stuff is the best thing for, or one of the best, things for, this situation that we're dealing with right now.
Even for a budding photographer, it's pretty awesome having all this time to.
Yeah, it might be a bit more of a challenge, like getting gigs for photography, because there's aren't, like, especially if you're like event photographer, that might be a challenge.
Well, I meant more in just like a hobbyist sense.
Oh,
Where
it's
I have all this time to like actually practice and get better.
yeah. But yeah, so like, I was, regardless of, I mean, I'm hoping it's an April Fool's joke, and it's not. Even if it's not the first time where he's taken a hiatus and come back. So I'm not like, oh, he's for sure done or anything like that. But it just made me think about that, like, for us who are doing this kind of stuff, I don't really think that there's anything additional to worry about. I mean, we're basically in our homes, reviewing, evaluating, and nothing has really changed as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, some people are worried about the whole package and shipping thing, and yeah, I don't know. I've heard. I'm obviously not an expert. Anything we say about Corona on here needs to be like subtexted
seriously.
with that. I don't think any of us are even close to
Let me get the
being
salt real quick.
doctors on that. Yeah, but like, I don't know. I'm hearing that like packages, like the virus can't survive more than like a
Yeah.
couple hours, something like that on packages. So like, as long as you wash your hands after you like open up a package and then take everything out or something, assuming people have packed it, wearing some
Yeah.
kind of gloves or whatever, I think you could probably be okay. It's
Well,
yeah.
at least less dangerous, I think, than going out in public without a mask. So, so
There you go.
I don't know.
And that's the other piece is they're saying now is that there are a lot of people are actually probably majority of people have already had it to some degree and just never had the same symptoms. And so the reason they're
also
saying
possible, yeah.
masks are
Mhm.
important, even if they're not the N95 masks, is because you could be a carrier and not even realize it and
Yeah.
be spreading it. That's the bigger problem, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And that's what I've been reading and talking to some of my the doctor friends we have. And so that's a big part of it. It's and obviously if you're at risk, do not go out in public. Do your best to wipe everything down and try and keep your social distancing game up and order everything online and wipe that stuff down.
Yep. I mean, and there's no greater risk when comparing just buying anything off of Amazon. I don't think there's any difference there in getting it from one person or a warehouse. Like,
No.
In any case, I'll leave that to the experts. I'm not an expert on that, but I'm just curious how our lives may have changed as a result of this. And for me, certainly the headphone stuff hasn't really changed all that much.
My beard's gotten longer. I haven't shaved.
I was gonna say you're not alone in that.
I'm a little bit scruffy. All that fun stuff.
Yeah. Moving on here. Okay, I haven't actually asked this question in any of the streams, I don't think, but like, have you guys been listening to any new music lately that you want to share? Any new albums? Anything that jumps out at you?
David Gray's 2020 remaster for White Ladder just came out recently. There you go. Random for the day.
Yeah, this is all you guys, because everyone knows I don't actually listen to audiophile music,
It's just
right?
science sweeps.
I mean, if you want to listen with your eyes, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know, like any specific test tracks.
Speaking of, now that I think about it, speaking of, and I actually showed Flux this as well. This was a while ago. This isn't really new, but I think because of the Smart Everyday video, I saw that there's a type of music that is generated using oscilloscopes. So like it plays music and it plays on a scope in like, the scope works in 2D. So I think it's like volume and frequency or something like that. And when you plot it, it generates images and it's playing a song at the same time using the same signal, which is really wild. And it creates an really interesting soundstage effects. So
Wait, it creates
that's
images,
fun.
like so you're getting visual.
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
visual
exactly.
experience.
Because like the way
This
they make the music, and when you play it back using an oscilloscope and like using the sine wave, but plotted in 2D on a graph on an oscilloscope, it makes images. Yeah, like circles that
this
float around in ovals and all kinds of crazy
this
stuff. Yeah.
for whatever reason, it sounds to me like you're describing like the old Windows Media Player. Like, you know what? You
Yes,
know.
it is. Yes, it's visualization, but it's also the visualization is embedded in the
Or Winamp.
signal of the sound itself, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
Oh,
one was
okay.
pretty fun.
Cool.
And
Cool.
because of that, it also does a lot of weird imaging and soundstage effects because it's because of all the panning, I think, that generates that visual signal as well. So that one's interesting. You just Google oscilloscope music and you'll find it. It's
Yeah.
really ridiculous. It's not necessarily audiophile or whatever, and it's electronic music, so that probably disqualifies it immediately. I've had comments, I swear, man, on the channel that are like, but did you use classical music by this composer and this guy? Because otherwise, wrong. Completely wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. But
Was
anyway,
it? Is it like it's ECM or EMC recordings? They're always the good ones that everybody wants. I don't know.
something like that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Um. Yeah. For me, I mean, just on that subject, I've been getting into a lot of the binaural recordings, like the binaural music. Like, I was recently listening to one from Amber Rubarth, which is weirdly the only, as far as I can tell, it's the only. There's only one of hers that's binaural that's on Tidal. I think there are
It's
probably more on Spotify. I can't remember the name of the track, but it's a totally unique listening experience. And my hope is that we start to get more binaural recordings for music that I'm actually into. I'm not particularly into Amber Rubarth. All of a sudden, a lot of people are getting mad at me in the audiophile world because
I
that's
think
stuff
a
I
lot of
disregard.
what's his name? A lot of Yoshi Horikawa stuff
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
is
Yeah, his stuff
recorded using
is
yeah.
binaurally. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So even if it's
the
not like a
Amber.
binaural recording itself, it's using some, which is
Yeah.
probably why it sounds so
I'll
interesting.
pull the name of the track that I'm thinking
Yeah,
of too.
I have it. It's on one of mine too. It's the it's let's see here. Oops, that's not. It's
I
the
you're
sessions
not.
from the 17th Ward, right?
Although the one I'm thinking of is the single. It's the "You're Not Gonna Stop Me" single,
Oh,
and I
because she
think
has the
it's
17th Ward one that's really
right. Okay. And I know about there's the Chesky sessions and all that stuff as well,
hmm
and there's a few others. There's the problem that I have with it right now is that like most of it isn't music that I would actually want to listen to. Like it's not something that I like personally. Like the style, it's not the style of music that I like. Even I know there's a guitarist Otmar Liebert who does it, and I don't think he's all that great to be honest. But that's just my bias there towards not liking that music in particular or that artist in particular. But I really like the sound. I really like using it as a kind of like oh wow, let's see how this headphone sounds with this binaural recording. I don't know how appropriate that stuff is for evaluating soundstage and imaging and stuff like that. I almost think it might be more confusing to do it with binaural recordings, but it's definitely cool. So if anybody has a chance, or just afterwards, Google binaural recordings and you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, somebody said bubbles in the chat. Yeah, pretty
Bubbles,
much.
yeah, yeah.
That's everyone
Letter,
uses that.
bubbles,
I like to
yeah,
use letter. Yeah.
yeah.
letter. He did one where it's called like the Frog. You've seen the Frog one? It's like I can't remember exactly what it's called. I'll have to find it, but it's the Frog one. It's crazy because it adds like electronic music to it, and it's
Was that on the newer one, on the newer album?
I
From Yoshi
think
Horikawa?
I'm not sure. It was a random one I found, and it was just
Yeah.
like crazy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I watched there's a YouTube clip of him going around and like recording stuff. It looks like a lot of fun. But yeah, okay. So we've gone over music. I know. I mean, is there anything else that you're just like listening to? Like, if you're at home and you're working and is there anything you just throw on, just not because you're trying to, evaluate anything, but just because you're wanting to listen to it?
I mean,
Tyler's all about Billie Eilish.
oh no.
She's
No,
awesome.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
There we go. Wait, can we
What's
get
that one?
Is it auto-focusing properly? Let me put my face up to it.
64.
Is that U12T?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
glorious.
And then I also have these beauties that I got also that I've been playing with a lot. I almost was going to wear the U12T today, but then I wanted to test the GX mic. But
What's that one? Okay.
this is the Mest by
Unique Melody.
Yeah.
So I'm on the loaner tour for that.
I've never even heard of that brand. Jeez.
Yeah,
It's too many of them.
Dude, it has a the Mest is unique because it has the bone conducting driver in it.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Wow.
but it's for the mids, and it's bananas, man. Like it's got this crazy airy sound stage, and it's I would say it's very similar. I think a little bit better, in my opinion, than like as far as the airiness to an Andromeda or a Solaris, but it's
Okay.
a little bit smoother. It still has that brightness to it. It kind of has that. So not for everybody. Between the U12T and the Mest, I would say it would be kind of like comparing the Verite to the Aeolus. The U12T would be kind of like the Aeolus, and then the Mest would be more of the Verite, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm into that. Okay.
Yeah, does that make sense? I mean, it's not apples to apples either. By the way, this is purely.
Yeah.
I've heard good things. Right. It sounds interesting.
They're really good. I'm impressed by them, especially for the price point. That's the craziest part. Is the price point is really good.
Somebody said Pink Floyd. Heck yes, Pink Floyd. Certain Pink Floyd songs. Like there's some where the recordings are not particularly good, I find, but there's a lot where it's like.
You mean the lowest BPM song in the world?
I like using Dogs on the Animals album. That's my favorite album, Pink Floyd album.
Okay.
But yeah, I've lately been evaluating these. This is the A8000 from Final Audio. They are not for me. straight up, this is the Beryllium driver IEM. I think they're just. This is like one of the few times where I can confidently say that they're a little too bright for me. Normally, that's I'm the memes for me is that I hate bass, but I actually think that the problem is in the treble with that one. For anybody, I was getting some questions about that earlier. All right, so moving on, let's get into the reason why we're all here. The Mastrop versus Odyssey and other brands. Yeah. So, I mean, for anybody who is unaware, right now there's a bit of drama, or I say right now, like last week, there's been a bit of drama surrounding basically Drop violating Odyssey's map. Now, they weren't technically violating them because they just bought it from a dealer and then sold it at a lower price, right? And this is, I mean, Drop has been around, or I should say Mastrop has been doing this kind of stuff. Like their whole idea is you buy in bulk and then that way you're able to have lower prices. But what happened with this one is they were not guaranteed, the warranty was not guaranteed by Odyssey. And yeah, apparently this was without Odyssey's blessing. So actually, Metal knows more about this than I do. So I'll
yeah, probably. I'm probably at least partially to blame to starting this because I saw them. So I went on Drop's site and I saw them. And I'm like, oh, Odyssey sent a bunch of LCDs to Drop to sell. That's interesting. Because everyone is struggling during the Corona thing. I figured. So maybe that's what they did. And then they were like, we don't know anything about this. And then that's when they had to make like a huge statement. Now I think the statement went slightly too far, and I think I said this on the Drop comments, because it said like, oh, they might be counterfeit. Now the chances of that are like basically zero, because no one's going to counterfeit an MX4 or something like that. But yeah, so that's what happened. So then later we found out after that happened, Drop fired back and said, oh, well, we just bought them from a dealer, and we can do that because said dealer, who they won't name, of course, because they would immediately get in trouble. Because you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to resell like that. Now, this is the word that I'm looking to use here is improper. It just seems improper that they would do that. That doesn't mean it's illegal or anything. Like they can theoretically do this, but it goes against, like, it's not fair to other dealers, I think, is really why people are upset. At least people in the industry that I talk to. Like, a lot of people don't know about that side because I've obviously talked to some of the guys from headphones.com. Resolve does probably talk to them about this, and I talked to Bloom because I know the guy, he's local. So it's a different perspective, you know. Now, what I was most concerned with though is that the users would get a warranty of some kind, of course, because you know, the average person is like, "Oh, look, a good deal," and they don't need to worry about the dealer thing or whatever. They probably don't care. But and then we found out later that Drop will be covering that anyway, and they probably bought up extra stock to handle the warranty
Mm,
claims. So, thankfully, the only thing I think you're going to end up losing here for the customer is that if you sell that Odyssey and I don't know, somehow Odyssey finds out that it was from Drop or it was originally purchased from Drop, or you give them that receipt, they'll be like, nope, we can't repair that. I don't know what happens. Maybe they will handle it. Maybe Drop will handle it, but I don't know what happens to the next owner. But
right.
for the first owner, it seems like they'll be fine, which is lucky because you always run this risk when you don't buy from an authorized dealer. That's just the way. This is the way the industry works. Pretty much every brand, at least as far as I know, that dealers carry have this authorized dealer minimum advertised price standard. It's just the way the industry works. So
Well,
that's my full statement on that.
well, I wanted to get your take on the response from Drop, alleging that that map is similar, is basically like price
Yeah,
fixing.
I mean, that's really a question that I'd rather ask a person from a dealer to handle because I don't know. I think now I don't know because I don't know the legal side of all this, of course, either. I need to prefix this. I think that it's to make sure dealers are all on a level playing field until you message them and say, "Hey, what price can you actually give me?" Because that's standard, by the way.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
people don't know that
Yeah.
dealers actually like the price that they're allowed to advertise is always set by the manufacturer. If they do something other than that, they're against the contract they pretty much signed to be an authorized dealer. But that doesn't mean that you can negotiate the price. That is not something that they'll be like, "What? You can't do that." No, you always ask them as a customer. That's or else why would they even exist? Like who's going to pay
yeah,
MSRP if they can get less than that?
Yeah.
But you know, obviously how much discount the dealer will be able to offer at a time varies. So you actually when you're shopping through dealers, you usually want to go through a couple of them and ask for their best prices. That's how it works. So,
it doesn't do the dealer any benefit to, you know, try and advertise below a map anyways, because they would be losing money, right?
right.
That's they'd be better off not doing that, and you know, it's in their best interest to, you know, try and make sure that they're selling it at
Yeah,
whatever everybody
somebody
else
just
is
said
selling
it.
it at.
Yeah, somebody just said in the chat
Yeah.
here, you might actually be able to get a better deal asking a
Mm,
authorized dealer for their current pricing than going through drop, and that's true. It depends on
yeah,
the model, of course, but I think the again the biggest problem I have overall is hey, so as dealers aside, like
Yeah.
is
And
the
Android just nailed it too in his
is the
comment he just
customer
posted.
handled? Yeah, what did he say? Yeah,
You're breaching
yeah,
contract. That's the biggest factor is by
for the
going below
dealers.
map. Yeah, for the
Yeah,
dealer.
that's you're not supposed to
right.
do that.
And so this is all just essentially, you know, a third party
Hmm.
buying, like one dealer buying from another dealer essentially, and then selling that,
Yeah.
right? It's not, they don't, so Drop didn't have the contract with Odyssey, so that's why they're not technically violating map
Any,
by distributing it at the price that they've set
yeah,
there.
but they're setting a precedent of basically wrecking
Yeah.
their chances
Well,
of ever working with other
oh,
companies.
totally. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's not a good look in my opinion for Drop, but I mean that's the other thing too with that is that people were saying that it was, you know, it's gray market stuff and just questionable warranties and whatnot, and you know, regardless of what ends up actually happening at the end, like for the customers, the fact that that perception is now associated strongly with Drop as a result of
Mhm.
these types of um, dealings, let's say. Even though, I mean, here's a question I put to you guys: did anybody do anything wrong in this situation? Is there anything
I mean,
that,
always both
like
parties.
there's a difference between whether or not something is unethical or just in bad taste? And I'm
It's
wondering,
Yeah.
where does this
yeah.
fall?
That's kind of what I think the word that I've been trying to think of what the word is before coming on here, and I think the word I'm going to use is just improper. Like
Improper.
it shouldn't be done like that.
Yeah.
But is it illegal? Not to my knowledge, however.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just not a good look. Like I think
yeah,
I used a couple times too.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just.
um
I agree.
the other part of this now too though is that I mean, after that happened, now we have Quad coming in saying the same thing, essentially, right? Or a similar, there's a similar thing going on with Quad, which, to be fair, I don't really know enough about Quad
Yeah,
to understand
I
what
hadn't heard
they're.
the details of that. Are they like looking to work with Drop, or did somebody already do that with their products or something?
I, I'm not sure. I believe they had worked with Drop in the past, and I think that was what was going on. But this, from what I understood, and maybe somebody in the chat can correct this, but it was a similar situation that happened right afterwards, where they were selling stuff that Quad didn't have. They didn't have any contract with Drop for. There was no. It basically was without Quad's blessing, just like what happened with the Odyssey products. Um, the other side of this too is that, I mean, it's on its own. It's interesting that dealers are offloading stock to Drop, or trying to offload stock back to the manufacturers, right? If that's what happened in this case as well. Um, the idea of offloading stock because of the current situation. I really like. I would have thought that you know it's not
Yeah.
like it's not like people aren't wanting headphones right now. It's like, everybody's working from home. Headphones, everybody needs headphones now.
Oh,
That's great
absolutely.
right now. Yeah.
I would have thought, having stock is better than not having stock.
Yeah, I have no
But in any
idea.
case, it's
It could have been a dealer that was already struggling
yeah,
or something. I guess we'll never know because obviously, I mean, I think it tells you everything when, obviously Drop is not going to tell you who these came from. I mean,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
can't, because that would ruin a relationship.
I
That
mean,
in
they're fine
itself
with
is
that though.
not great. They don't
yeah.
care, but it's just it's just, like I said, it's improper.
Max
Right.
says Quad is saying Drop is selling their amps gray market. Same thing.
Oh, that's
same
currently
situation.
happening. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I mean, this also goes back to, like, I mean, the whole feud with Drop and Odyssey came to a bit of a boiling point there recently, but it's not like they didn't have issues in the past
Yeah.
with one another, with the LCD2
LCD2C, yeah.
classic, if I recall. I don't know the full story there. I mean, I don't know if you want to
I am not at liberty to take either side
yeah.
because
I just don't even know that.
because I have heard both sides already. But the thing is, I have no proof one way or the other. So
Right.
by me saying one brand said this and the other said that, it's no better than take your
Yeah.
pick as to which company you like better. I don't
Yeah.
have proof either way. So
Yeah, but needless to say, I mean, they were already not too thrilled with one another, and for probably for good reasons. From a history of things not really working out there. But the other thing
Yeah.
that I just think is interesting about this controversy is it kind of shines a light on this idea of buying, whether it's through collaborations or through the actual bulk purchasing concept that Massdrop was based on originally. I wonder what's going to happen in the future for this, because I mean, everybody else is probably looking at this situation and going, well, why would I want to work with them? Either for a collab or for, having some sort of contract with them. If they're just gonna devalue my brand or undercut, what we're doing, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, right? In the case of the HD6XX, I think that's one of the more interesting ones, because, I mean, it's quite a bit less expensive than the HD650, but at the time you could see it make sense, because I feel like Sennheiser wanted to stop producing HD650s. And so, there's
Yeah.
this idea like, here's all of the HD650 drivers, make them, right? Or what? I don't
Yeah.
know how that actually works, but like the idea of offloading that product to Drop made a certain amount of sense. And now it's turning the opposite, where it looks like at least Sennheiser is back to producing HD650s somehow. So, or
Yeah,
at least maybe they found some old stock.
They're-
I don't know
they're-
how that actually works.
I think they're producing out of Germany now again, or something
Are
like
they?
that, right?
They're
Or-
being made in no, they're being made in Romania. I
Ireland.
think that's
Romania.
what
Oh,
it is.
Romania.
They
Romania,
moved
okay.
from
Yep.
Ireland to Romania, and yeah, I don't know how all that came about, but the difference between that and what's happening here with multiple brands
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
is that those companies came to an agreement. It's absolutely fine. Like, it was shocking for me to tell Odyssey, "Hey, did you see this?" And they're like, "No." We don't know anything
my
about that
God.
at all. And I was like, whoa, what is
Yeah.
happening here? That's completely different. Like, I'm not sure what the reasons were where Sennheiser decided, oh, yeah, we'll sell a 650 as a 6XX. I mean, everybody won because that's like one of the best headphones you can buy now for that price range. But
Yeah.
that's just what happened. So,
Yeah. I just wonder how this looks in the future for drop, whether it's going to be more focused towards collabs with end of life products or assumed end of life products, or if it's going to be, you know, if they're going to get
it
in trouble
seems
again for
like
this
it.
kind of thing.
It seems like, yeah, I mean, a lot of drop stuff seems to be stuff that's, end of life. I think Max just
Yeah.
said that in here.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it's looking to us. I haven't heard that from anybody.
And in reality, that's probably where the most bread and butter for them would be, anyways, right? Because they get it probably cheap. They can mod it slightly, change the color scheme, and then they get a lot of money out.
That's
The
kind
back
of
end of
yeah,
it.
that's kind of their thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Speakers are I keep
Well.
saying that. Dan Clark, yeah, right. DCA, like what was it, the Aeon X Open? It seems like they made a couple more last
Yeah.
improvements before they put it up there. I haven't heard that thing yet, but
Well, that's the thing. Like when they're actually doing collabs where they change something and potentially improve it. Like
I find that really interesting.
I do
that's a thing.
find it like, they're thinking, oh, we can do better with this product if we tune it this way because we know that the audience wants it tuned this way. That's an interesting
Yeah.
approach, I think. But it seems like lately it hasn't been as much of that, with the exception of the Aeon,
Yeah.
of course. And I know that did you get a chance to try the Ether CX? The closed back. So the same thing happened with the Ether C Flow, and then that.
I have not. I think that was what, like a 1.1
I'm not sure.
space or something. I really don't know where that came from. Oh no, it was based on the original Ether C. That's why, because the flow was already out with the 1.1.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah,
so
I haven't heard it.
it's another one that, like, I think the other side of it is, I mean, they're selling them at such low prices compared to what the originals are, compared to what the standard products are. That there's a lot of interest in those products, I think. And the thing that I'm imagining is that eventually I think the companies are going to wise up to this and go, but that's kind of, it's like shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit for a short term, cash injection. I wonder where things go in the future for them. That's basically all I have on that subject.
I don't know, but I really like that they collaborate with brands and they try to listen to what people want.
Yeah,
like there are some failed projects there that I really wish happened, and they've already revealed that at one point I think they were trying to revive the Sennheiser Electrostat. Oh my god, I can't think of what it's called. But not the original HE90, but the Orpheus Junior or whatever it's called. I don't know why I can't think of that at the moment. But yeah, they were working on that, and I'd be like,
that would
dude,
be really cool.
If you could bring that back, but like, I don't know, with a little bit more bass or something like that for a mainstream audience. Geez, that would have been really sweet.
I mean, they have produced stuff that has also been extremely successful, apart from just the 6XX as well, like the THX 789.
Yeah,
is like
one.
the amp, right? Like, it's like, if you're trying to cut through the landscape of all the different pieces of source gear, that would be the one to get for, especially for power requirements, right? If you have, if you eventually want to get something that's requires a bit more power, right? That's sort of like the benchmark for that stuff.
Yeah, as far as I know, pretty much if you want the most power at a reasonable price point, it's not necessarily the best sounding amp available. I think we covered this last time. I'm supposedly an ASR shill, which I'm not. I mean, I think you should always use your ears in the end.
No,
but
you listen with your eyes. Stop it.
Yeah. It's difficult not to do that because I'm an engineer, but I really try.
I listen with many thousands of dollars of measurement equipment. That's how we listen with graphs. Max is saying LX is fixed Ilir.
That's
actually the other one that's worth pointing out. Yeah,
I think that's kind of true. Yeah, the Alex is probably one of the biggest the biggest things they had going for them too.
But
Yeah.
see,
But you could
these
just take
days,
the
yeah,
Lear and add the freaking
Right.
clear
You can add the
pads, and
pads.
then yeah,
and it's such a cheap, like it's the same price I think, and you get,
yeah.
so it's
And
$5.99 I think.
well, also I think that the Lears are technically a better built headphone, right? Like, I mean, I
Yeah, I
remember
don't know how they
my
Oh,
wear
really?
Alexas
I
were
them.
haven't
pretty
compared them like
chunky.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd love to
Yeah, like
do a comparison. I can't get my hands on an LX at the moment. I used to.
Yeah.
I used to have a buddy who. Well, I have a buddy who used to have one, and so I'd heard it. But yeah, to me, I think that the Alir deal with the I'm not sure if it's the clear pads or the Utopia pads, but one of the two is supposed to sound very similar to an LX, or if not the same, is the same frequency response.
Didn't
And
Android measure all the pads? I think he
yeah, I
did at
think he
one
did.
point.
Yeah,
That's up on the headphone forum,
yeah.
if I
yeah,
remember
Ian
right.
did, or sorry,
Or,
Torque did. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's who it was. Yeah, right.
yeah. He
So-
and yeah,
It's to me, that's, in my mind, that's a more interesting buy because you get two pads, right? You get an extra set of pads there.
yeah.
So like maybe there's people who prefer the default sound of the Alir, which is more
Just
what's
bass,
more
right?
bassy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
For the bass heads out there.
Yeah, you do get that
About
option.
bass, about that
Forgot
bass.
about that. You can't buy an Alir without pads. So
and the other thing is that the Utopia pads are, from what I understand, really well. I mean, on the Utopia they're really nice, but if the frequency response is good with them, which I haven't had a chance to look at that. I assume that it's very similar to the LX. Those pads are very comfortable. Like they're very nice feeling as well. I think they're made out of leather.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In any case, it's interesting, but we can move on from that. I think.
anyway, I think we
Yeah.
covered the drop thing now.
Yeah. Sorry. What's the Stavros? What's the question here?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was looking back.
The headphones. Oh, he's looking, he wants to know what screenshot he needs for the competition for the headphones storefront for I believe the Aeons.
I haven't been involved in that. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I don't think we're not really too involved in that, but I mean, we can ask, but I think you just need a screenshot of the YouTube, right? So just do a screenshot
Oh,
of
the
the fact that
subscription.
that you're
Yeah.
subscribed
Yeah.
to the
I should probably
YouTube
know this.
show, and I think that's all you really need to do. Just show that
Yeah.
you subscribed, and hey, here I am with my
Yeah, yeah.
subscribed. It shows on the screen, and then that's it. Really, I think.
Yeah.
My understanding.
Max says the fact that people say clear is bassier than the LX is strange to me. They measure exactly the same. So to me, it's actually the opposite. I thought that the LX measured. We're saying ELX or LX? I'm saying LX. That it
I like
measured
Alex, but
brighter. I thought the LX had more treble energy there. So I don't know. I almost to the point of being like a little too much, and then
Yeah, Lex,
even
yeah,
to me,
definitely.
even the clear is a little much to me in the treble, like just barely at 8.5 for 8K hertz, but it's still on the right side of sibilance to me, but pretty darn
Yeah.
close.
Depends on what you're listening to. That's definitely one of the headphones that is only too bright for me because of the garbage that I listen to, I think. But like if you're listening to it, but it's
Yeah.
like perfect for really well recorded music, so much better, which is probably why Olive likes it so much too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a good question for you. Speaking of the Alex and all that, which would you take? This has been we've gone through comments of this, but if you had a choice between the Hi-Fi Man Sundara and the Focal Alex / Alir with the clear pads or Utopia pads or whatever
B.
makes it sound
B.
like it.
The answer is B. Oh wait, sorry.
So I think that would be my answer too, but I'm putting it to you guys. I wonder what Metal thinks of that.
No, I'm gonna go with the Sundar on that one.
Sundara.
I mean, we both like both headphones. Like I think the Alexas. I thought it was slightly expensive for what it is, given where the 660S sat and the 6XX and whatever. But it does offer quite a few improvements over it. It's that's kind of subjective though. It's a good headphone.
Yeah.
Me personally, though, I'd rather own a Sundara, with a warranty, obviously.
I can agree with that. Like I think that personally I like the Focal sound better personally, but the Sundara it's been a while since I heard the Sundara. I should probably hear it again. But
Oh, it's actually changed too. I think the new one.
yeah,
I think
I
you were
just
able to
got
confirm that, right?
yeah. And so I think, but when I did hear it, I was like, okay, this isn't like at the time, so it's been a while. But personally, I was like, okay, this is really good sounding. I like the build quality compared to other hi-fi stuff, and it sounded good. But at the same time, what I currently had, I think I had the clears at the time, and I was like, the clears are better, so I'm not really too
Clear
on
is
it.
definitely something.
Oh yeah, well,
That's always gonna be that's a personal
Yeah.
my problem.
Yeah.
Like my
well
problem.
that price
problem.
difference, that's what I think
But
I'm
there's the
factoring in
price.
on too.
Yeah. The price difference. So,
the
but like,
resale value in that is a little
yeah.
higher.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
as far as I think you just need to find your preference with those, but like I think that the Sundara versus the LX, the Sundara would probably win too. Also, I can agree with that.
Interesting, because so the difference for those of you guys unaware, the difference between the Alex and the Clear, and also the Alere and the Clear, is that the driver for the Clear is using that they call it the frameless. No, it's Luna Magnesium. Both, but it's the frameless voice coil or formless voice coil where they. So the Clear,
they cut a lot of weight out of it. Then.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense now.
Yeah, lower mobile mass, and both the Elex and the LX and the Alere have they still have that. I think it's copper frame. I think that's what's going on there.
It's a more traditional driver, I guess. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't actually even know that until just now, but that makes a lot of sense as to why they sound the way they do. They're very close in FR, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
But
that's where the difference in like detail and all this stuff comes from.
That's just fueling my that like I was saying, I don't remember which stream it. Maybe I think it was on here on one of the streams, but like and I've heard this from companies before. Like there's it seems like the weight of what Focal calls the mobile equipment, which I think is very funny every time they say that, but everything that's moving in the driver, you want, if you can lower that mass as much as possible, that and also in the case of planers, on top of that, add as much magnetic flux as possible, which is essentially why the 1266 TC sounds the way it does too. Then you can get as much resolution out of it because it follows the original music closer
perfectly. It's excursive and restorative force, as long as those are immediate, right, and perfectly reacting to the signal, then you're going to get better performance, and
you're going to need a better amp. At that point it'll start getting a little bit more noticeable, the difference between source gear, I find too.
That's also very key. You have to find that's the wonderful way cohesively they interact with each other.
Yeah, it's tough. Yep.
The synergy. Okay, so moving on to the technical discussions here, which is a good jumping off point because we just talked about detail retrieval. I'll skip the one that I haven't written down here to the question about if we're trying to isolate the term detail retrieval, which I mean most reviewers use this term, right? Do you think it's worth talking about this as an experience category that's the result of a whole bunch of basically everything, so including frequency response and speed and everything else that's associated, even like stage and imaging and all that stuff? Or is it something that on its own is directly related to real physical properties and characteristics, like, for example, restorative and excursive force, the mobile assembly, whatever they call it? What's your take on that? That's a bit of a long-winded question.
That was a really long question, so I was like,
let me see if I can put it another way.
Really shorten it. I also missed a part of it. I'm sorry.
Is in your mind, is detail retrieval something? I was
playing Animal Crossing.
That's more important, clearly. In your mind, is detail retrieval something that is only an experience category that's made up that reviewers use, that's made up of a whole bunch of different properties of the headphone? Or is detail retrieval on its own something that we can directly correlate to a specific physical property, like restorative and excursive force and mobile assembly and whatnot?
From my conversation with the engineers, it seems like the weight of the driver is one of the major effects on that, as well as, like I said, the magnetic flux and the magnets. I guess that would go.
I was gonna say like the speed,
but
so like how
that's kind of the science, I guess, of the speed, because like if you can react to transients faster, then you're producing the music a little closer. What's weird is we still don't know how to measure that. It's kind of weird. Like some of the headphone engineers have told me, it's impulse response, but what's weird is that doesn't agree with, like, I think I asked Oratory about this probably about 62 times by now, and every time he just says I mean, you can produce up to 20K, right? Because if like it couldn't move fast enough, if you think about it, you couldn't produce the high frequencies at all. So clearly it
Right.
can move fast enough.
Mhm.
So that makes me wonder if you can produce way beyond 20K, even if you're not playing it back, then that would be somewhat related to the weight of the driver too. But he's also said things like, if you make the driver too light, it can create problems with different driver modes of the like modal distortion or something like that. Break up the different parts
Right.
of the film or the cone, stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not a headphone engineer, but I guess it's a delicate balance. I'm not sure what's
You
going on there.
you would want to have the center be a different stiffness and rigidity from the outside as well.
Yeah, right. You can't have it just like, like an Odyssey drivers break randomly and then
Apparently.
so...
And then the people you sell it to send you a text message.
Yeah, right.
Hey,
Oh
hey.
no. Yeah, it's funny. I've seen it happen quite a bit. But yeah, that's all that's all I know about it right now. But it's
Okay.
it's also interesting. Someone mentioned tiled here. Um, and Chase says it's a combination of different things, which is probably closer to the truth because he probably knows more than I do. But um, what is weird is he used to use a lot of square wave graphs,
Yeah.
and that, as far as talking to people now about that, they were like, why
Yeah.
would you want to do that? Because
No.
that's really just the impulse response in a different form. So
Yeah. No.
yeah, I don't
I
know.
was talking to somebody from Grass, and he told me the same thing. Or
Yeah,
from
right.
Grass,
That's
but he was
yeah, I knew someone had
about
said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said no, like why would you want that? um, but yeah, so I'm on the side of, I think a lot of what we're describing, what the reviewers are using in to talk about detail retrieval, I think that is an experience category that's a combination of a number of different factors, like speed, and like different characteristics, different physical properties. What those are, I don't know what they would end up being. Um,
Yeah,
but I think it's a number of things.
Yeah, you're
I
essentially
think they're-
I think you're just asking the question I've been asking for a long time, sort of in a slightly different context. Like,
Well,
where does detail come from?
it's all
like,
super subjective too, right? At the end of the
What's
day.
grain, right? Yeah.
yeah. Well, I
What's
think
great to you versus to Andrew to me, or like that kind of thing too. You can also take those into factors, and that's what
I
makes this hobby so hard. I think sometimes for people.
I like to think that grain is pretty well defined once you show somebody, but that's the problem. Like,
Yeah.
it's also
but that's
very
what
hard. Yeah. Oh, that's exactly. Oh, yeah. That pretty much just proved your point. Yeah. Like if you've been listening to M40X and K371 and whatever, and then you go to
You
6XX and
acclimated to
whatever,
it.
it's like, oh my God, this is so much better. And then you have
But
me
that's what you
telling
knew.
you, that sucks, dude. You need an LCD4.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what you knew. So you're like, oh, no, this is great. I we're
I
talking
know.
about.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, how could this be grainy? This is like
Yeah,
so much better
you're
than anything I've
crazy.
ever heard.
You're a crazy person on the internet.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's tough,
I would love to get your take on the Hi-Fi Men Aria, because to me, so it's to me it's the most fascinating headphone because, well, not but one of the most fascinating headphones because
Mhm.
it's clearly exceptional for detail retrieval throughout its frequency range, better than the Aria. Better than the Ananda.
Yeah.
And better than most headphones within that price range. Then in the treble, I hear grain, I hear etch, and I wonder if that's more to do with
After you EQ it? Like, did you try EQing
no, so
it
when I
and
EQ'd
stays
it,
there?
it went
Okay.
away. So I was going to say, so when I EQ'd it, it was like specifically at around between 8 and 9k hertz. That's usually where I'm able to identify grain a little bit more easily. I hear it on the Focal Clear occasionally too, but it depends on the track, of course. But what I wonder is, would there be a difference between this idea of detail retrieval, the way that we're talking about it, and frequency response related grain, where if the frequency response has a weird balance issue there between 8 and 10k, or 8 and 9k hertz, does that is that a different property, or is it a different characteristic from grain and etch in your mind?
So, etch and glare and all that kind of stuff that I tend to talk about is really, I mean, it's kind of like me trying to say the treble in particular is grainy. But I think that one of the things that defines like glare or etch for me is where if you EQ the thing, it sounds like the peak wants to come out at any time anyway, and that's kind of how the HD 800. It's interesting. Like the 800 and the 800S that I compared once reacted differently to EQ, and I think it's partially because the physical damping is different because they added that resonator in there. So that was pretty interesting. So I think that EQ for me is not really just a tool to say like, oh, I'm going to tune it, and if it doesn't sound a certain way, it's wrong. Oh, that looks very good.
Is it the Kraken? What is that?
Martin was asking about the abs.
Oh, okay.
I brought out my wonderful bottle.
Stole my attention too. Yeah, all right.
Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, with EQ, yeah, part of it is I want a certain sound, and that's just me. Everyone wants a slightly different frequency response. I think even Fun Beyond said that to you too, when you interviewed him. But I also use EQ as a review tool, and that's because if you EQ a headphone and it really morphs really well without trying to hold its original signature, that's kind of a sign already to me that it's pretty detailed. And that was kind of the case. It was interesting that Stax reacts very, very, very well to EQ, which is really interesting as a result of that too. But anyway,
even with bass.
Yeah, actually, even with bass, because I mean, and the way it reacts, well, the bass dynamics are not very good, but it's because the harmonic distortion is so incredibly low.
Yeah.
If you boost the bass, you don't get like a whole bunch of smear going into the upper bass and whatever happening as well. So,
Slam is distortion.
Yes, that's why you don't want it at all.
No slam, no
Yeah.
punch, no. Well, certainly with planars and tightness and that kind of stuff, it seems to be a difficult question. What's up, Tyler?
Something just popped up, and it's actually something that I've been reading about a little bit more. And I think Metal, I think you've mentioned it, but I can't recall. And Andrew, I think you've heard about it too. Is the Oratory's Harmon EQ presets?
Oh yeah.
And I know Max has mentioned it a couple times in different forms.
Oh yeah.
But like, I think that you guys speak on it more because I'm not a big EQ guy, but I think that that's a good question in the sense that it's. I think doesn't he just measure and then put out and doesn't actually test after the fact? That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That's what I thought too, but when I asked him that, he said he actually does listen to it, and he does sometimes update his profiles, so that's why they may not be like perfectly measuring. Actually, I think what happens is he doesn't remeasure the headphone with the EQ. I think he just applies the EQ to what he measured and shows that graph, if I remember right. I could be wrong again. I have to ask him, but
Oh, I see.
I'm not an EQ guy, so that's your guys' realm for sure.
But yeah, I think he does hand tune it a little bit, and
It would take a
so
while
it depends.
to measure everything after you.
Yeah, I know, especially if you
it.
keep changing the profile slightly
Yeah.
as you listen to it. But
Actually, I'm getting more and more into getting back into doing more EQs for pretty much every headphone I review because of that same question of
yeah, it helps to review. I think
exactly how does this actually sound when you do dig into it, and how can you what's the best it can potentially sound?
I would like to counterpoint that.
Okay.
Well, most people aren't actually going to do it.
yeah, that was my counterpoint. It's like
That's
pretty much
not wrong.
99% of the people are probably gonna be like, put it on my head and it sounds good.
Yeah, it's also true.
There's a lot of value to that too, which is why I have to give things like
All right, Chase L, giving it to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of value to that because that's why like the A-list, I put it on and I'm like, this is awesome. I don't really need to do anything.
You don't have to.
And there's a lot of value to that. It may not be the most technically amazing headphone, but
man,
wow, is it pleasing to listen to? And I always say this is true.
That and you know what, the U12T is my
like that too.
Oh my god, man, that thing is so this thing silky smooth. I let him play. God damn it, sorry.
It's still
so smooth and just butter. It's like, I mean, if you like butter in your oatmeal.
Yeah, well, that's me.
Brown sugar, little maple syrup.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, actually, I was going to say, to further that point, I think for IEMs, it may be even more important how they sound out of the box because a lot of people are using them portably, and not every portable player has anywhere near the customizability of, a parametric EQ. They may have a graphic, but that's nothing compared to having a parametric like a KPO either. So
Yeah. So maybe the answer is to only EQ headphones that you don't like their default tonality with.
Yep,
Like,
which
and,
is
you know, it's headphones
everything
you would,
because I'm way too picky.
yeah.
But
If you're gonna
it
give something
depends
a
on who
bad
you are.
review, you then also give the EQ profile.
Yeah, exactly. Like I spent so much time on that Nighthawk EQ. You can't even imagine. I really tried to make it sound normal, but oh my god,
I couldn't get the bass definition to show up. That was the biggest problem
no,
for me. Like no
no,
matter
You
what, you know, even if
yeah,
you,
you went
it
past the
didn't have
point of no
anything.
return.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
wonder, like, you know, see, I love the fit and form factor of that headphone. The Night Owl.
Oh
Like,
yeah, oh yeah, the
back,
comfort's great.
back here actually. Here we still have one. And I've been thinking about it, using the suede pads on here right now. It still sounds a little rolled off, and I'm thinking, you know, this. I almost want to mod it. I don't know, like looking at the structure here. I was talking to the Aurora's Audio folks. I think, well, maybe not me modding it, but I think somebody like them, you know, or you know, any of the modders out there, I would use this as the chassis if that's possible, just because it is so unbelievably comfortable.
Oh yes.
And then also it's using angled drivers, so like I'd love to see something like that with like maybe something other than a biodynamic. What is? I don't want anything to fall off. It makes me nervous just watching.
Nah, just
But-
ZMF fanboy in it. That's all.
Hey, it makes for
Yeah.
great pictures. How can you blame that?
Yeah.
True story.
But on the subject of the AudioQuest headphones, I did enjoy Sean Olive's mention that these were always
Oh,
in
yeah,
last
I
place
forgot about
for
that.
consumer preference.
I think
Which is a
another
little
one.
bit funny because it does
Yeah.
have a base shelf like crazy, right? So it does go to show that even, you know, for consumers, lots of there is a limit to where the base shelf should be.
Yeah, and where it should end, not 800
yeah.
hertz or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, so funny. Yeah, I think that I was looking at another one of his papers, or actually I think it was one of his presentations. There are actually some if you guys are interested in this sort of thing, you can Google Sean Olive has a bunch of presentations that are actually on YouTube. It's pretty interesting where he presents
Yeah.
the papers. That's a little bit easier than reading them. And during one of them, I think he was saying, "Oh yeah," and then the V-Moda was last or something too. Like it was the other brand that like people had heard and was like, "Yeah, no, that frequency response, no." So it depends. Yep. But it's just
Still,
funny.
the weirdest headphone that I've heard for frequency response out of the box is the HD820 back there.
Oh
Things are really-
no.
It's not something that jumps out at you right away for sounding really weird, but when you compare it to other headphones, like you compare it to like everything else, it's like this is just weird. It's just
Yep.
there's something. It's like hollow but then congested at the same time. I don't know. I'll have my review out for that pretty soon. Here.
That's a good way of describing
Spoiler
it, I
alert.
guess.
it's hollow, but yeah.
You know, it's too bad. Before I was accused of working for Odyssey, I was accused of working for Sennheiser, and then the 820 comes out. What am I supposed to say about that?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, I don't know.
personally, I like the 820, man. Like, I think that the 820 got a
It's
bad
fine.
rap for what it. I think too many people are trying to clear it in this. Clear it. They're trying to compare it too much to the HD800, if that makes sense.
Mm,
And I think if you take
I'd-
it apart and look at it as it's just a closed back, I think the technology's great. And then I will admit though, the seal, if you don't have a good seal, and
Yeah.
if you wear glasses like all of us do, I'm not wearing them now, but I did, like, it was like for the first like week I had those
Very
things,
thin.
it's like I was
Thin
like, what the heck is going on with these things? They sound not that great. And then it's like I randomly just wasn't wearing my glasses, like, oh, I get it now. And then but
Mhm.
yeah, like it's and then as soon as you even just slightly touched them though, it was like
I'm
burp.
sure the fit is. Yeah,
The,
if the ear cups are the same as the 800, yeah, I think it completely changed too.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think that the pads are different though. The
Yeah, they
pads
are.
are.
I don't have them on me, but yeah.
But I mean, but then that just speaks to the threshold for closed back headphones, or the for whether or not it's any good, is much lower than it would be for open backs. Or we just need to give
Yeah.
evaluation with EQ on that one. I think because like actually the detail is surprisingly good on the
Yeah,
HD820.
that's what I thought. Like, I don't think there are
Yeah.
that many people who are praising it just because it sounds so unusual. But
yeah.
you know, I really wonder what would happen if I EQ'd the thing. I've never had one at home either, but that would be so funny.
I actually I have EQ'd it. I'll release my EQ profile with the review.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you release that review.
Yeah. Yeah, but the detail is definitely up there. Like I'd say the detail is probably better than what's going on with the Elite. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can agree to that.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on here. We can skip CSD Revisited. We don't need to talk about that again.
Oh no!
We'll wait
Please,
another
no.
6 months before we dig into that. Although I will say it was interesting to read Crin's description of how he evaluates that he does.
Yeah.
He's a shill now, man. You can't trust him anymore.
No, but I mean like that idea of like, you know, we know what these papers say, but at the same time, there's still a little inconsistency with the way that we experience things because it seems like this so far is the only thing to explain it. But again, we'll leave that for another time.
Yeah,
Let
it's
me
tough.
clarify. I was joking, by the way, with that shill comment, just so the internet doesn't try and like go crazy.
I have now been accused of being a hi-fi man shill. So
I mean, to be honest, to be fair, no.
I just said I thought the aria was a little grainy in the treble there, so you know.
You can't be saying things like that.
Sorry. Yeah. Whoa. Sorry.
I do think this as far as the best headphone I've heard. So yeah.
Oh, it's really good. I'm not gonna fight you on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll fight you. Let's do this.
No.
Yeah, wow.
That's
Okay. Yeah.
But then again, I don't consider those headphones, so let's be.
Yeah, that's a good.
That's a different
the RAL.
category. Yep.
Yeah. Near field headphones. Near field speakers.
Earfield speakers.
Near field, yes.
I keep pointing at you guys on my freaking screen.
It's all right.
So I got one more topic for us before we get into full widespread viewer Q&A. Viewer Q&A pandemics. It's a question of DAC differences. So which is a huge question with, you know, minimal difference. But I recently the reason why this is on my mind is I recently released a video on the Liberty DAC. And I was more surprised at how easily I was able to identify and differentiate the DAC components. And to the point where I'm hoping that in the next little bit I'll be able to do some blind testing and actually be able to guess correctly which is which. But comparing the two units between the Liberty DAC and the IDST Micro Black Label, the distinction there was very, very obvious, but less obvious when running it through a separate amplifier. And I was wondering, do you think that there is a reason for that? Is it because everything's being summed and the variables, I can't remember who was saying it. I think Flux was saying this, but the variables are being compounded a little bit or smoothed a little bit, so you're not able to identify those variables as strongly. What's your take on, you know, different, being able to tell the difference between various DACs and whatnot? That's another long-winded question.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Like, honestly, the best person to answer that is not an internet person outside of his wonderful forum and now leading.
Oh yes.
But and for me personally, and I don't know about you, Metal, but no, but like for me, like I tried, like I was kind of asking Torque a lot about that, like how do you differentiate it? How do you describe these things? And I think he nailed it on the head. Is when you hear a DAC review, it's people, because it's so small that people basically elaborate and make it so much grandioser than it is. That's a word. But you know what I mean? Like they basically emphasize everything so much more than they really should, if that makes sense. Because
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I am. Like,
We all are.
It's because, or like I'm guilty of throwing stupid food comments or like, you know, whatever. It's the color purple. It's because of the color purple. It's so much better sounding. Like I don't,
Yeah,
but like, but it's. I think
Purple
that's
does
the
sound
problem.
better.
It does. True story. True story.
That's been proven.
But like, I think that the DAC difference is such a minimal amount of difference that it really comes down to preference at that stage. But you have to basically go because it's such a small change that it's that last like 2 to 5%, right? So you have to get crazy with it.
Yeah.
As far as describing it.
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, but there was one reason why one area we're gonna push back, and it's that, and this is the reason why I brought this up, is that with the What was that sound? Oh, it was the microphone.
Rubbing my glass.
That was
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
I was like, uh,
Timing.
yeah. But switching to the Liberty DAC actually made it so that I had to change my EQ profile. It was dramatic enough of a difference where
That's
I was
kinda
like,
crazy. Yeah.
I actually had to drop the treble down on the Elegia by 2 dB and on the Verite by 2 dB. Comparing that against the IDSD, sorry, the Pro IDSD here. So like it, you know, I don't think it changes the frequency response. It's just that it adds certain, it like emphasizes certain
The
elements.
sabers. So, and that's where I think I
ESS,
can come into
yeah.
play. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and I will say that, and that's the
That
biggest
is
difference.
ESS, yeah.
The ESS versus Burr Brown versus
AKM.
AKM.
AKM, yeah.
So I'm an AKM guy. I kept wanting to say A and K for some reason because they're on my mind for some reason. But I would say that the Saber DACs are super bright. In my opinion, this is my personal opinion. Don't take it to heart. But like they're bright for me. The Burr Brown is probably like the U12T of the DAC world, where it's just super smooth and just it's just that's what I found. Well, at least the ones I've used. I mean, I'm talking about like the iffy
Burr
stuff.
Brown is like the night owl.
like to be fair,
no.
yeah. But like
Maybe not quite.
Not quite, but like I like I think to me like they're colored. That's what, if that makes sense. Like I think the Burr Browns are colored. They make everything smooth and in just like an easy listening type deal. And then I think the A and K, AKM stuff is my personal favorite. That's the one I'm like. If I was to pick a DAC, the AKM is what I really want. Yeah, Max saying just said Saber Glare is real. Like
Saber Glare is real.
Yeah. and so or you get into the custom stuff like some of the custom DAC builds like what I think shit does a lot of that stuff.
The Iggy or Yggdrasil.
Yeah, like then you get some of those which are like just smooth and deep. I mean. But it's all that final like 5%, right? If that, it's probably even less than 5% of the quality, right? But it is a factor. Once you can hear it, it's you can't unhear it. That's the part that's hard to explain.
Yeah,
it's like once you hear something that's like, oh, that's off, like
it's too much.
without you letting somebody else experience that, like it's impossible to describe it. And that's why I think people get so grandiose with their
So that actually it makes me think of this other topic which we kind of missed, but it's when we're scrutinizing things like the finest little details and the last 5% or something for technical performance, detail retrieval, and all this stuff, it makes me think of the question that I've had ever since the Borealis has been released, and actually ever since even hearing the Borealis. Which is, if for anyone unaware, we talked about this in the last stream, but it's a new headphone from Aurora's Audio with a seatbelt, safety first. But the question with the Borealis that I'd like to get your guys' take on, if you have heard it, or even if you haven't, just this is a question that's been on my mind, is when we're trying to get these crazy nanoscale planars and push the boundaries as far as technical performance is concerned, for detail, for speed, for all this stuff. Does that end up taking us too far down the road away from what would actually sound realistic? Is there... basically, if there's a continuum between nanoscale planar detail retrieval, crazy technical performance on one side, and realistic and natural on the other... where I don't know where the Borealis would fit, maybe somewhere in between, but like, is there such a thing as going too far in one direction on this? Is there such a thing as going too far in the technical performance realm that it takes us away from the music that we're listening to?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know about you, Metal, but I think you can go to any extreme. It's going to be too much, right?
I think it's way personal on that. Like, if you're listening to a bunch of black metal, then you probably don't want to extract every tiny bit of detail.
Oh dear God, what have I done to my ears?
But if you're listening to like, everything that Resolve has ever listened to, then you probably want this as far.
I listen to garbage too. Okay, I have a playlist with Burzum on it. So
have you seen my playlist on the forum?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. I'm just messing with you guys, but yeah, no, it does depend, because I've actually had I've obviously have shown some of the stuff that I own to friends, and one of the guys is a big metalhead like me, and he's like, this is I'm hearing too much here. Like I don't want to hear all these little things. Like it may be too distracting, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you
I
just want to have a good
Sometimes,
time and not
sometimes
worry
you just
about that stuff.
you want to drink some
Exactly.
booze, you want to sit back, you want to
And I would
relax.
say ZMF is probably like one of the
ZMF.
kings of that
My man,
approach too.
my
So,
I mean, it
man.
might
yep.
be the case though that other elements of technical performance that we might call technical performance is like, for example, dynamics and stage would have more of an influence on the actual enjoyment of music, especially if that music is particularly poorly recorded or
Yeah.
aggressive or something like that. Those elements are still able to be enjoyed, while that super analytic kind of detail thing is something that often maybe is too much. Like, for example, I was talking to one of the guys from Focal who I asked him, he's a metalhead. This was sort of in the quiet moments we were talking. And it's like, what what kind of music do you like? He says, I was really into metal. I was like, what was it like listening to your metal on Focal Utopia for the first time? He's like, yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, oh god. But it's just because
Exactly.
it's like getting something with a certain tonality that emphasizes detail as well, like that headphone. It's like, yeah, I could see you want
Yep.
some of that stuff to be smoothed over a little bit. So to me, yeah, it's an interesting. That's why the Borealis though is such an interesting headphone, because it is trying to kind of thread that needle and navigate that.
That's the seatbelt headphone, right?
It is
Yeah.
the seatbelt headphone, yeah. Now I haven't heard it enough, so I can't really pass judgment on it. I only heard it once at a.
I
at a
think I
meetup.
was with you that
Yeah,
day.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Have you had a chance to try it yet, Metal?
I tried a prototype. I don't know who I told this to, but I tried a prototype. Like that thing's been in development for a long time. It had to have been like at least 3 years ago.
Well, they're sold
actually.
out now, so
Yeah, I know. They're making a couple at a time, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they sell out really quickly if people are clicking refresh there.
Yeah.
So the only way is to be patient. But yeah, no, I heard a prototype, and I don't know how much it's changed since then. Prototype I heard did not have a wide open back to it. There was still
Oh,
some kind of
I
mesh
think
somewhere at that stage of development.
I think what
Um,
we heard was almost close to final production, right?
it was open. I'm not sure. Yeah,
It
it
was
was a
close
while
to
ago
final.
though.
It was a while. It was
Yeah,
back in December, I think, right?
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like there might be some differences from the time I heard it to now, I'm sure, because Max is saying it's like $2,000 worth of detail for $900. That was definitely not the case on the one I heard, but the two things that stood out to me on the headphone, okay, maybe three. Well, first of all, frequency response is very close to like ideal for most people, I would say, probably, at
I
least
really
most
like the frequency
audiophiles.
response. Yeah,
The other thing was it was just a slight annoyance at about 6 or 7K on the one that I tried. That might be gone by now. I have no idea. That's the only thing that bothered me at all, and it was really minor.
yeah. I
But
got to get my hands on like a production unit, or at
but
least
but
have
I
someone
think the
assemble it.
most impressive thing about it though was it had so much dynamic impact. Short term impact, slam impact, not long term dynamics. I don't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
evaluate that as much as you guys do. That's just me.
yeah.
But yeah, oh my god, that thing punched like an X00 could, but it was open back and it still had full bass extension. Like having all of that, all of those things combining is really impressive.
Yeah,
So it sounds like it's only been improved since then, which would make it
I think
more
we
than
have
worth.
we have a forum member that just got it too, and so I've been trying to get him to kind of post more and more on the forum about it
Oh,
because
cool.
it's interesting. Like I when I heard it, I was impressed, but I wasn't like not enough to
Yeah.
cop it at that stage, if that makes
But
sense.
see,
Like
that's the thing is
Yeah.
like when you're first putting on a headphone and you're evaluating it, oftentimes, like at least for me, the first thing that I gravitate towards is, okay, how does this stack up for detail relative to the competition?
Yeah.
And if it
Yeah.
doesn't immediately grab me as far as detail is concerned, that I'm not
That's me.
as hooked on it. But that doesn't like long-term listening would have a
That
different outcome.
Totally depends on the person
your
for that
brain
one.
needs
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
your brain needs to acclimate, right? Because you get
Yeah.
acclimated to like I've been listening to these, and I've been listening
Oh,
to
yeah.
Nest and the U12Ts a lot for the past couple weeks, and like my brain's not acclimated. So if I throw on my Veritas with SR1As, like I'll probably be like, oh, whoa, like
LCD GX representing here. We got
Yeah.
two of them. We got one on the back there. with,
Yeah, this one's way back here. Actually, you know what I've actually been using for work is this, which is my phaser wearing the GX mic. And I
nice.
upgraded it to a carbon headband a
Nice.
while ago to reduce the weight
Look at
slightly,
you, man.
which I can now actually wear somehow.
Let me.
That looks amazing.
but
no.
it's like hilarious. I haven't even turned on my video yet, but like if we ever do video on the conference, people will be like, "What in the world is happening?"
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the
great.
biggest. People are like, "What the f are you wearing?"
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
that's
great. But yeah,
that's
anyway,
fun.
yeah, I do have the GX and the 2F still. I'm still trying to figure out
Yeah.
which one
So-
I'm gonna sell.
Actually, so that's a good question, Metal. Since you do have the GX, and I know
Yeah.
Andrew, you've heard it also.
Yeah, I liked it. I gave it a good review.
I think for me, I think it kind of did it a disservice, honestly, by kind of shoehorning it into the gamer realm because it's
Oh yeah,
really
definitely.
good headphone. Like
Yeah.
like it's
I agree.
good. It's smooth. It has this nice I think it has a little bit of roll off on the highs, but like
A little bit
but
more
I'm
than
not-
some of the other ones, yeah.
yeah, but it's good. Like it has this nice
It's
relaxed.
pretty cohesive. Like there's nothing really
Yeah.
crazy peak or dip wise.
Yeah, that's what I
it's
say. There's
comfortable, too.
no problems with it. Like I've
Yeah.
been throwing a lot of stuff at it over the past week or two, and like it's funny because I bought this when it first came out. Like I pre-ordered it. Like I pre-ordered it through the headphones guys. Like I was like I think Taryn, like Taryn, I need this. Give it to me.
That's how Tyler gets all of his headphones.
Oh no.
I'm coming to your house. No, but I heard it.
Calls up Zach. I need another purple thing.
Yeah. Your story. I mean, no, like I did. I heard it at SoCal, the SoCal Can Jam, and I was like, and it was like first thing in the morning. There's no one around. And I was like, I went straight to it. I went straight to the Odyssey headphones station, and I was like, I want to hear like, what are you here for? I'm like, I just want one. It's the GX. I want to hear it. And they let me listen to it there, and I was like, it blew my mind at how smooth it was,
Yeah.
like how good it really actually just sounded in general. And then I got it in, and I think it was just a bad timing, but like all I ever used these for was for gaming, and I just never really paid
Yeah,
attention.
that's doing them such a disservice, isn't it?
It's such a disservice. And then I started listening to them like exclusively this past couple weeks, especially with stay-at-home stuff, and I was like blown away at how good these were, even out of my phone. Like
Oh, yeah.
I was like, holy crap! Like, how are these sounding this good out of
Yeah.
a cell phone with a stupid little dongle DAC? You know, like
Yep.
it blew my mind how good these
Dongle
were.
DAC is the new benchmark.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Donald Duck.
Dongle DAC. How
Yeah,
big is
yeah.
your dongle DAC?
We gotta get into the Donald DAC now as well.
Yeah, that one. I thought that's what you said originally because
no,
I know
no.
that Resolve has talked about that. I was like, that's slightly larger,
We
isn't
have
it?
the bigger brother here, the TR amp, which I need to review this because it's pretty good actually. Although it is ESS based, so for anybody who is
Oh no,
ESS,
that's a no-go.
No go. Yeah.
yeah.
So
But-
yeah, now that Tyler's given his impressions, yeah, the way I described the GX was basically because I actually had the two phaser to compare it to also. The big difference is that where the 2F, I've always thought there's a little too much 1K. Odysseys tend to have a bump there. And of course, there's still a 4K recession. It's quite big in the 2F versus some of the other models. And then there's a little peak at 10K, 9K, something around there. All of that is like brought closer to flat on the GX at the same time. In fact, I haven't even tried EQing the thing yet. I've just been listening to it.
that's
It's
a good
out of
point.
control, and that's really, really weird for me. If you guys I'm watching me for any amount of time, it just sounds good,
It's
and
just,
that's
it's
really
just smooth.
unusual
It's
for me.
Yeah, I'm agree. And so and Tidian's asking this, like, so to me, the U12T are better. Like, they're just a better. I mean, they're IEM. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
not
they
the
should
apples
be
oranges,
higher res
but, like,
than that too.
way higher res. But it has that same. I want to say sound profile, if that makes sense. Like that smoothness. Like it has that same, like just.
Well,
Where it just.
doesn't it depend on which of the Apex modules you're using?
Oh
or
yeah,
the,
sorry. I'm using the highs mostly. I don't really like the bases, the silvers. I think that's what they are. Like I like the dark grays.
Oh, they
Which I
do a
think are
bunch
the
of different filters.
the highs.
Okay.
Yeah. So
It
the
makes
highs.
pretty big difference too.
Yeah, they're big
Yeah.
difference. And so I like the highs better. And this one reminds it, like it has that same kind of like it just like what you were saying before, Metal. Like it just gets everything right where I don't really care. Like I just put them
Yeah,
on and I'm just
I
like,
know.
oh, I can do this.
And
Like,
and a full size Odyssey, let me be the first to say that's weird.
and they're
because
light.
They tend to
They're-
have
yeah.
and they're light. So someone else asked, how's it compared to the two classics? So this is a really interesting comparison. So I want to start by saying I think and I haven't suggested this to Odyssey yet, but what I'm thinking is they should do is, so these come with the mic and the case, and the 2 Classic doesn't have either of those and costs like $7.99. So if you eliminate the mic and the case, you're
My
saving
case
like
is hidden.
$200 off that. So this thing could cost $6.99, I guess, then, by my math. If
And
you
you can-
sold
yeah,
that
make it
thing for that price,
Oh,
You can
know.
also make it purple too instead of red, and
Yeah, I
it
know.
would sound even better.
you need different color
don't
options
tease me,
too.
man.
I'm just
Tyler will
giving
buy
great
3
ideas
of
to
them.
Odyssey here.
Tyler will buy 3
We
of
can
them.
we can measure the benefits of purple over red as well. You know,
Sure.
this is something that does show up in.
Yeah,
I'm
right,
sure
yeah.
somewhere on ASR we're talking about you know,
Yeah,
measurements of different
my
color
eye.
bands.
When it comes to purple.
yeah. But yeah, so I guess one of the only downsides is if you're plugging that into something completely random that might have a really high output impedance, it's going to suffer a little bit more than the LCD2 also, because
right,
it's only
okay.
20 ohms, so that could be a little bit of a problem. I've actually, like, depending on what I'm plugging the 2F versus the GX into, sometimes the GX is louder and sometimes it's not. It's really strange. And I'm talking about like crappy sources, not like
I'm
audiophile
knocking over
stuff.
action figures once I get this in screen and shot.
But see,
I don't wanna
like my
break
take on that
anything.
on the GX was that it was great, but it was like again,
Oh, yeah, there
it
you
was
go.
not the thing that I think if you are somebody looking for a gaming headphone, I don't think you should buy the GX. I think you should buy like
You don't need it. It's
you should buy like a Sundara or an Ananda or even if
But-
honestly that's one of the few applications that I think those Bayer Dynamics are pretty good for with the stage and all that stuff. Because it's all about
Yeah.
like the highs, right? Getting that you know little
got
I
that-
tiny little
commonly recommend
But
people
see-
DT880s for
Yeah,
gaming.
DT880s
Yeah.
are
But
perfect.
even,
that,
but
yeah.
even then, let's be real. How many of you are actually competitively gaming?
Oh yeah, I used to do that all the
I
time.
used to be.
No, I'm
yeah, I used to
serious.
be.
But
I was really
competitive
serious
FPS?
into it. Yeah, and
Yes,
FPS.
like where you're getting paid, like where it matters.
No,
like,
but it was fun to.
I was
own
at the
people.
stage where I was getting beaten by Koreans, and then I realized
Oh, no.
I had no chance because they were so much better than me. But I was
their,
ranked.
their moves
yeah,
per second are like
I
extremely
was,
higher.
at one point I was ranked 35 in the SC2 ladder in North America.
I
So that
should
was
introduce my buddy. He's a
Jeez.
what's the highest diamond rating in Starcraft? He's
Yeah, mine was so it goes Grandmaster,
man.
then Master, then Diamond. And
yeah.
then,
So he was like
so-
3 diamond or whatever the heck the diamonds ratings are.
yeah.
Jeez.
I'm not a Starcraft guy, so that,
You guys should. It's a great game. But no.
Yeah, me
I
either.
haven't
I
played
have
it in
tried.
ages.
I
just
have
haven't had
all the
time.
games. I have played them. Just
Yeah. In any case, getting to the Q&As, or I guess we've been doing a few, but might as well.
Yeah, someone asked about
we're
the
just
GX
having a
at the
grand
beginning
old
anyway.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, somebody
that's
asked
what this is
about what?
about.
The I see the ADX 5000 out of a tube solid state. Have either of
Oh.
you guys heard the ADX 5000?
Only very briefly. The only thing I took away from it was on the brighter side. I think it's got, from the measurements I've seen, not front ears, it's got like a 5K peak on it, which is not surprising. A lot of high-end Audio-Technica open backs tend to be bumped in the mids. That's kind of what they do. But the resolution of it was much better than any of the other Audio-Technicas I've had before. So I'm friends in person with Keenex from r/headphones, or he used to
Okay.
be on there. He was one of the mods. And he's a huge Audio-Technica guy. So I've actually heard quite a few of these winged headphones that very few people own, like the 82,000 and the 82,000X. So comparing to all of those, I think the ADX 5000 beats all of them in resolution quite handily, which I would hope so for the price. So they actually managed to like hit a new level that I hadn't heard Audio-Technica do before. But yeah, it's probably not my kind of sound.
What's
So
the
that's
driver?
all I know about it. I think it's just a regular dynamic.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard it yet, but I will get a chance soon. So
Yeah, not too many
we'll-
people have. Seems
Yeah.
like they've reviewed it, so that'll be good.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Tyler, which model of ZMF Dynamics is the most balanced / neutral? This is a fun question.
Oh,
I know the answer to this, but I'll let Tyler answer.
I will be sure not to answer. This is all Tyler.
balanced and neutral. Did you ask the wrong person for that?
So I can tell you right now, it's the auteur.
That's your
Yeah,
yeah.
As,
Like
as some
most
people like
linear.
to say, auteur.
The
of
most
this
linear,
group,
yeah.
I'll let you guys know I'm the hippie of the group, where I'm
okay.
all about the discoloration. Let's get some alcohol in the group. Let's get some tubes. Like I'm
ESS
not
is
about measurement.
unlistenable.
I'm all
You
about
like you like discoloration instead of colored
Yeah,
sound.
yeah.
You want discolored sound? All right,
All right,
taking it
I
to
like
another
color.
level.
I
yeah,
I have been imbibing, but no,
it's
like
definitely the Tour. Yeah.
yeah, I would say the yeah,
Yeah.
and which I need to start getting into because I want to start buying more of the ZMF line. But I right now currently only have the Verite Close, Verite Open, and the Aeolus. So
Doubling down on Verite, man. I need to get
and
a
I'll
Verite
probably be
close.
getting another Verite here as soon as I get more information.
Cool, cool. Um, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I hope that answers your question. Cool.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Tour is probably the most neutral,
Tour, yeah.
but the one that I prefer the most is probably the Aeolus. Verite
Yeah, the
Open
Aeolus.
sounds a little bit odd to me, but it's still pretty good. I haven't reviewed it at home, so I don't actually 100% know.
It's warm, but it depends on the pads.
But
for
yeah,
sure.
the pads make such a huge difference that you like can't even review a ZMF
Dude.
without trying lots of different pads. It's
You need
ridiculous.
the pads. Pads are what hone it in to what
Yeah.
you.
So
And then
what you're
I
looking for, yeah.
100% agree with you. The Aeolus. If anyone asks me for their recommendation for in-game all-arounder, it's gonna be
That's
the Aeolus.
just such an easy pick, yeah.
Cool.
But the Verite C actually sounds more neutral to me than the Verite Open. Like it has a little less peakiness in the treble or something. At least what I heard in Can Jam, which was really strange. I didn't expect that. I might actually like the closed better than the open of something.
And that's why we were talking earlier about this. But like normally the threshold for whether or not a closed back headphone is good is a lot lower, right? It's a little bit easier to recommend closed back headphones that aren't as good, you know. But when it comes to the Verite closed, that may actually be, you know, one of the few that really nails it for
Dude, the closed
flagship.
is like the close is just crazy. Like it just sounds so good for being a closed back. I think that's the factor that really kind of makes everyone kind of like go, "What the heck?" Because it's so
Stelia
good.
versus Verite C, do it.
So Stelia versus
I need a
Verite
Verite
C.
C.
Yeah, you do. I know.
So for me personally, like of the two, I think they're tied. Verite has better stage. I think the Stelia has a little bit better, kind of like the Focal range, right? Like they just have a slightly better. They're faster. They have a little bit more detail. But as far as tonal balance, I would actually personally give it to the VC. But the Stelia, I think, in the real world sense, is probably a better tonal balance.
Yeah,
for me
Stelia's
personally,
probably more neutral.
Yeah,
classically.
Yes,
neutral, with a bass bump. It definitely has a bass bump.
Definitely has a bass bump. Yes, and I think that Andrew, you've heard the Stelia a lot, so like I think, for me, like but then see, I'm biased because I love my VC so much. So like it's hard to like go.
I don't know either.
I
don't know.
I give them a tie for the fact that they're. I would actually come down to what's your aesthetic and what's your use case. So if you're wanting to go out a lot in the public or you want to travel with it, Stelia. If you want to relax and enjoy and just be lost to the music and just enjoy like a beautifully built. I mean, come on, like.
No,
I mean,
they're such good looking headphones.
Like,
ridiculous.
He builds like it's insane. Look, I mean, like he just builds such great. I mean. It's no joke. These things are amazing headphones, and they look good. They sound good, and they're like there's something like I hate to sound cliche or like what have you, but like you can pass this on to your kids and be like, look at this, awesome. You know,
I think he advertised it as kind of like an heirloom thing. I mean, after all, they do have a lifetime driver warranty too to the original owner. Right. So,
and that's just it, right? Like I think it comes down to what your use case is at the end of the day. I think for me, between the Focals, like those are my two favorite brands, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you're gonna go between Focal or ZMF, pick what you like the best aesthetically.
It's tough. They're both good, yeah.
In my mind, I actually think that the detail retrieval for the Stelia and the Verite Open, at least, I don't have time. I haven't had time with the Verite Close, so I can't really comment on that one. But if it's anything like the Open, I actually think that the Stelia and the Verite are very similar in detail retrieval, like closer than because
sounds about right. Yeah,
I don't think that the Stelia is quite on the same level as the Utopia. It may also have to do with the frequency response that they're going for, how different they are. But in my mind, it's like Utopia, then Stelia. And remember that they're both really, really fast because they have that beryllium self-damping driver. Then I would put the Verite right on that level, like Verite Open. So in my mind, if the Verite Closed is as good as Metal says, I think it would be right up there with
I think it's similar to the Open, like in and it's not. I don't think. I don't know. But doing them back and forth was tough, and
So,
obviously it can
so
jam. But the close has a more even frequency response. That's what
Yeah.
I found, which is really odd for a close back.
between the open and the closed, personally, if you were to ask me to which one I'd gravitate and grab, like so my natural reaction to grab between the open and closed would be the closed. It's just
Interesting.
like
Well,
that's
also
personally.
you don't have to deal with noise floor either, which is
Yeah.
well, I should say though the Verite open is more like a semi-open than like hi-fi meant
Yeah.
fully open, right? It does
In
still
fact, dude, it doesn't have as much sound link as these. Like these things,
yeah
like I mean, but the opens are like
Yeah.
I can actually wear those and not be a big deal. Even the HC800s have bigger
Yeah.
sound link than the Verite. Crazy. My
but
wife
and also the other thing
like, oh, turn that off. I can hear it. I'm trying to
the
sleep.
other thing with the Verite, both closed and open, is that the real story with those ones, in my opinion, is like, well, apart from just they sound good, but it's how they scale on tube amplifiers as well. Whereas with the Stellia, the Stellia to me is more of one of those things where it's if you don't want to invest a ton of time into the tube rolling thing or getting into tube amps, if you just say, like, in my opinion, one of the best combos for a closed back system that's convenient to use, it's the Stellia and the Hugo 2. Obviously that's very expensive, but those are like it's a small, fairly small, kind of almost portable source there, and if you compare that to the Verite, the best combination, at least that I've heard with the Verite, is with their pendant amplifier, which is it's a much bigger it's more of like an at-home station rather than what you could do with the Stellia. So I think those are that's what you would want to weigh. That's how you want to compare it, I think.
And that's what I was trying to get at. Like, what's your use case? Like, that's really when it comes down to what are you doing? Like, so are you going to work and you're listening from your phone, are you listening off of your laptop? Are you listening off a DAP? Are you listening off, like, what are you using?
Yeah.
And so if you're using you know those kind of things, you're traveling a lot, or you're going back and forth to the office, or
in
you're
a case.
in a case. And that's the other thing too, man. The Focal kills it with those cases, man. Those things are amazing. Not that ZMFs aren't good; they're amazing also. It's just that they're bulky and they're big, and you're not going to travel those long.
I would say the one thing that out of all this travelability that I think we missed was the Aeon 2 closed is ridiculously travelable.
Yeah.
That
So
one
good
is,
for that.
So comfortable.
and it's actually pretty decent headphone too. I really like that thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Aeon 2, I imagine, would be right up your alley as far as the tonality as well.
Yeah, it's a lot closer to what I like. Yeah.
Even the ether was. I mean, I know Andrew, you had some issues with the ether too, but like even those were like.
Oh, the fit.
God,
oh no, the open. Yeah.
Like the ether, like, oh my gosh, those things are so light and comfortable. It's ridiculous.
They were very, very light and comfy. Like,
and
that's why I wanted it to be like the perfect headphones. Like, I want this to be.
Let me love you.
Yeah. Yeah. I had that same approach to the Diana Phi. I was like, I want this to be the thing because it's like, it's the right size and weight for my necklet.
Oh man, the DMS Diana Phi. Don't get me started again. That thing is out of control, dude.
All right.
So good.
Let's get into some more.
Which question was that? I
don't even know
anymore.
So now I'm imbibing now, so now I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I need to get some like scotch next time.
The problem is with the time difference is way too early for me right now.
Oh yeah, it's only 4:30 here.
Yeah. Okay, so chances of an easy drive Susvara or HE1000 V3. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but HE1000 V3 doesn't exist. It's the HE1000 SE.
Yeah,
I think we could call it that. And that one, it only really does well on not too powerful amplifiers. Like, I actually couldn't run it off of my Kai IHA6 because it introduced noise floor because that amp's too powerful. You got to run it with something that's a little bit more modest. Yeah, seriously. Like, honestly, the shit audio. Oh, YouTube's gonna flag me for swearing. The shit audio.
Sorry, I was swearing.
Heresy. Yeah, it's fine. Right here would probably be just good enough, or even honestly, like something like a Hugo 2 or something like that. If you want to go like crazy high end, because you don't want to have too much power there. It's too sensitive for that. Which is weird considering it's a high-end planar. That normally isn't the case. And then the Susvara is the complete opposite of that, where it takes quite a bit of power. I wouldn't run it off of anything other than something that's got like at least a THX 789, if not more power than that. Like
Weren't people
7
saying
watts
like
or
they
something.
wanted to run it off of, or they are running off the Sosfera off of speaker amps?
That's
Like
right.
that was
They're,
like,
Yeah,
I don't quite
the
think it needs it,
Vidar,
but
the
yeah,
Vidar, I think it's used quite a bit.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Max probably has at
Hey,
least some thoughts on that.
I
I
got
think
some
he said
dual
it's a little more
Vidars going
slammy. I
on
don't
below
know.
my.
That's
yeah.
worth trying if you have one around.
I would go with a high current solid state amp, or if you can get into the speaker amp thing, that might be the way to go for that one. Okay, moving on here. Does the headphone have better timbre than the LCD4? Sorry, I'm scrolled up a little bit here. This is from Soundwave. That's a really odd question for me to answer
LCD4
because
timbre.
yeah, like there's not really like the LCD4 kind of sounds like a planar. It's not the
it just
dry
does, yeah.
kind. Yeah, it just sounds like a planar. Whereas
Yeah.
the headphone is more unique.
Dude, the
sounding.
headphone is just wide and it's detailed, and I think uh, if you can get past the fact that it sits kind of here as far as like depth, it's probably one of the best planars. Not that it's a planar, I mean but it is.
Well,
but
that's the
it's,
thing is it sounds more similar for timbre to a planar than anything else that I could really think
yeah,
of. Yeah,
and for the price, I think it's probably one of the best headphones you can buy at that price point.
yeah. For sound, I like $1,800-$1,900 or whatever it is. The
Yeah.
problem with that right now is I like availability is a
Availability.
challenge.
Oh yeah.
Everybody got hit with that for the supply issues.
And do we
stuff
have
like
any
that.
idea about the reliability of that thing? I have no idea. I
Oh,
guess it
no.
hasn't been around long enough to know.
Nope.
They did announce though that they're gonna be once everything gets settled and they get all the initial. I was reading a thing on forum about how I think Taryn posted it about how once everything gets settled, they're gonna be reissuing or figuring out a way to get the people that have the initial runs. They're gonna get the headband fixes.
Oh yeah.
So I
Hmm.
mean, they are working on it. So if nothing else, that's a good sign. Like that means they care about their customers. They care, you know what I mean? Like they are working on it.
Yeah.
They're working on it. So I think that to me that was a good sign, personally.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was no way that was fitting on my head to like push down as hard as possible. Yeah, on the top, trying to get it to.
You gotta squish the top headband piece so that
Yeah.
the cushion actually.
Pretty
makes-
much, yeah. But I did think it sounded
Yeah.
like it should, especially resolution wise, at least at CanJam on something that's not the SPL Phonitor. I don't know. We had this conversation before. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but every time I go to CanJam, the Phonitor doesn't sound good. At least not there.
Probably just
They
not
have
set
the
up
settings
right.
wrong.
It's
man. They
Yeah.
have the
probably completely
dude,
wrong.
I love
Yeah.
dude, my phone.
There's
Love
too
one.
many like that with the Phonitor. There's so many settings that I think you could screw up on it.
That's
It wouldn't
that's
surprise
probably
me if
why.
somebody was messing with the dials and then you know.
By the way, Tyler, you gotta put the mic very close because sometimes it's cutting
Oh.
out here and there. Yeah.
My bad. Sorry.
No,
Better?
you're good.
Much.
Yeah. Okay, so Lex
Oh,
says
I found an interesting question.
Okay, yeah, go
see
ahead.
if you guys think that this one is good. I think it is. So RVAS Production says, how do you guys exactly review the detail of a headphone? If I use a good headphone and hear detail, if I go back to a less headphone, I can still hear it if I listen it for it. I think this is going to require kind of a definition of it because
yeah.
that's not necessary. So I guess I'll start since I read the question. But so the thing with detail is it's not that the music doesn't have the thing that you're listening for. It's more of like a lack of fuzziness and like obscuring. It's like the best way I can put it is like there's a window and the window is more opaque on cheaper headphones and it gets clearer and clearer and clearer as you move
love
up,
that.
kind of. It's not that you can't see through it. It's just that it's not as,
Yeah.
clear. I
So
guess that's probably the best way to put
would
it.
I like that description a lot. I would describe it. I think it's exactly like that. But you know, for me, it's I use two analogies. One is, the main one is it's like putting on a sharp prime lens onto a camera. Tyler would know about this as a photographer. Like if you're using you're taking photos and you're using a DSLR or mirrorless camera and you're using a zoom lens. It's great because it's really versatile and everything, but the details aren't as sharp. They're
It
not
doesn't
as
specialize,
clear.
right?
Yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
if you put on a prime lens and you take a photo of a brick wall, you'll zoom in and you'll be like, oh, that's way more clear there.
Up in the up in the corners, right? So you
Well,
corners,
but also
factors,
center
like-
yeah, sharpness as
All
well.
around.
super sharp, but it sharpens further out too. Like you
Yeah.
get better detail across the board rather than just like in that one little spot.
Yeah.
So, so to me, it's that's the analogy I like to use. But I'll try and separate detail retrieval, or what I call like internal detail retrieval from the frequency response, like the overall curve, because you can hear detail retrieval in the mid range, for example. It's independent from the way that sounds in the bass and in the treble, right? Like you can, if you isolate a little bit, and as much as the overall tonality and curve does contribute to sense of clarity, there, what I'm considering here as internal detail, I like to think of that as more of this kind of like sharpness quality and clarity and structural definition for images as they come through, rather than, I mean, as Metal was saying, kind of like the more translucent or opaque window that
Yeah,
you're
and
looking through.
it's more. I think it's more inherent.
This
Like,
separation.
yeah, I think it's more inherent also because like if you EQ, one of the easy signs I think, as we were saying earlier, if you EQ the thing,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really like make it less glary. It doesn't increase or decrease the amount of grain. Actually, it could make. That's another question. How far is too much EQ? But anyway, just to keep things more simple, yeah, more detailed headphones actually react to EQ better as well.
I do
So
have a thought on how far, yeah, how far EQ is too much. Like in my opinion, getting it to perfectly match with the target curve is too much. You should only like, I don't think you should ever.
that's what I do. I only EQ what annoys me. That's the
Yeah,
way I do it.
yeah,
That's why
like,
my curve doesn't look anything like Oratory's, because I'm just like, all right, I'm listening. Here's what I'm hearing in the music. And some parts of my music there might be deficiencies. Like I don't care as much about. I definitely don't talk about peaks or dips around like 400 hertz very much, for example.
yeah.
But some people are really concerned with that because that's where the bottom of vocals are. It depends. But yeah, that's how I EQ. That's definitely
And
my approach too.
I'll generally stick. I won't go over 3 for my Q values unless it's like a one very specific point where I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm confident here. Because for
yeah,
most of the time,
yep.
like unit variation is a thing. It's not as bad on some headphones as it is on others. But when you look at a measurement, even one that's on a more accurate rig, like an industry standard rig, that isn't 100% like, so it's not going to be 100% to what you're necessarily listening to with if you own that headphone.
Oh
And
yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
trying to be super granular with the elevation or dip or whatever adjustment that you're trying to make with a high Q value, then you're potentially adding something that doesn't actually exist there in your own headphone. So unless you have a head and torso simulator that's industry standard, I wouldn't go above 3 for your Q values. I think
Yeah,
that's probably the
that's
limit.
way too narrow. I mean,
Yeah, even that.
I don't say it enough. Well, when I was still doing reviews, I didn't say it enough, but EQ profiles are just a suggestion. I mean, if you hear something different,
Yeah.
you should learn to play with it.
Yeah.
A lot of people on Reddit are just like, "Oh, slap it on there, done," and it makes like a K371 into an LCD4, like kills me.
No.
That doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Do you, boo? Right?
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
Don't be a sheep. Don't be a sheep. Do you?
I'm sorry, it makes it into a Susvara. There we go.
Yeah.
So a more neutral of a statement for me.
I forget who I was talking about this with, but we're talking about like whether or not you can hear an individual frequency, like 1 hertz.
Oh yeah, like what is the lower limit? I think
Yeah.
it's generally said to be around 20 hertz, but honestly,
Yeah.
when I run a sweep down low,
Oh no, not range, but I mean like, can you actually individually hear, like,
oh,
you know what I mean, like for the intervals in between? Like, maybe I was
Metal,
talking with Max about this. I don't remember what the
Metal,
limit is for.
why are you labeled as not a friend?
on SBAF? Oh no, that's a good question. So it's partially because I was trolling the guys because I was like, oh yeah, no, I can't like Odyssey here. That would be illegal. They got really mad at me for that. That was very funny. And then I said I won't review a Verum product because
Yeah.
I have a beef with the
Racism?
CEO of the guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but I didn't say that. I didn't say anything about that. They were like, "Oh, he's being paid by Odyssey not to review Verum," and oh my god, it's so funny.
Wait, did you actually get banned?
Yeah, oh yeah, a while ago. That was
You
actually
got
partially
banned for
my.
saying you wouldn't review something.
It was partially my goal to get banned too, because I wanted to see how little it would take for me to get banned. That was just
my God.
so funny.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I'm still a Facebook friend there. We'll see after this comes out and they want. No,
You're
not
associated
you.
with me now, so you
Not
can't.
you. Yeah. Well, there's a Verum one right there, so it's
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
Tyler's.
That's
It's
my
Tyler's,
Verum. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad without getting into the review because I said I wouldn't review, but I thought that was a pretty decent headphone for the price
Yeah,
range.
it's until now the Sandara's out, but before that, well, before the Sandara revision, let's say, at that price range, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it also does do stage a little bit more spacious than the Sandara.
Yeah, it was a weird. The staging was what got me weird. Like it was like, what the heck? It was just, that threw me off. I think I mentioned it or Andrew, you weren't there, I don't think, but I think the Listmores were there, and it was like, wow, it just had this weird. I couldn't explain what it was at the time. Like they had the weird staging, and I think you kind of nailed just when you talk about it, kind of nailed it. It's like it just has an odd staging for the Verum.
To me, the main issue with it is the treble.
Yeah,
I like it better with the leather pads, but I find it's still not quite as balanced. Like it's a little too sharp there, maybe around like the, I want to say 5-6K, and then rolled off. But of course, it really does depend on the pads that you're using. So maybe there's.
I threw on the ZMF suede pads. I want to say it was a suede pad. I think it was the ZMF suede pads I threw on them.
Yeah,
but I think I enjoyed those with them.
I think Oratory's measured the thing with like 3 different pads by now. One of them was the Ore pads, I guess, too. Yeah, so people are definitely trying it with
those
ZMF
Aura?
pads.
Or
Ori pads. Yeah, sorry.
Or okay, from ZMF.
Yeah. The stuff that comes in the attic is right.
Right. All right. Let's see if we can get a few more questions here. Feilong, is the varying ability in detail something that's noticeable right away, or something that you really have to listen for?
That's very hard to notice when if you're not a reviewer already and haven't heard like 100 different headphones. Probably not going to notice it much, which is why people are like, why doesn't Metal love the 58X, and why isn't it the best headphone possible? It's because I'm spoiled.
Well, actually,
because I work for Odyssey, guys.
But that's like the important thing, though. It's like for a lot of this stuff, it really is just having experienced the thing that is better. You know, like if you've experienced a Susvara and then you go down to something that's pretty much anything else. That's
why I tell people like it shows me that the best thing that's ever going to happen because you'll get to hear everything that you want to,
for your wallet.
Or the worst thing ever because you completely discover, or maybe you discover that $6,000 headphone. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. But it's like that thing. You have to figure out if you're that person where it's like, oh my god, this just rocked my world, or like. This doesn't sound that different to me personally, so I don't really care. And it's nothing wrong with any of that. You're saving
by
money.
the way,
at the end of the day, go ahead.
Feilong is the one who sent me the Susvara for a review, so big thank you to Feilong. So he has one. It's in the mail. It's on its way back to you.
They're pretty good.
Okay, I got a good question. Metal, would you recommend the Sandara over the DT 1990?
Oh, no.
I couldn't see you review the DTs, only the 1770. So he has reviewed the DT 1990, but I don't know if it's still there. Is it?
No. I think I made it private, either unlisted or private. And I did the same thing with the 58X because like when I don't agree with the review that I made, or I need to revisit it, and I know I need to revisit it, I don't want to keep spreading that information if I wasn't sure about it. So that's why that stuff has been made private. But so the DT 1990 is a tough one because when I reviewed it, I didn't have a chance to compare it directly to the DT 880, which is really what I wanted to do with it. So for me, that's still a really pretty annoying headphone in terms of the highs. Like I would probably choose the LX over it most of the time. So you can see where this is going. It's probably going to go to Sandara. But once again, Hi-Fi Man, you got to have the warranty if you're going to buy a Sandara. I have to like prefix every recommendation with that. Yep. So that answers it. I did do the 1770. I think he put that in there too. The 1770 review is still up because I'm sorry. I like the DT 770 so much more than the 1770. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Original. Yeah. And I actually still have one. No, they only made a
250.
No, I have an 80. The 80 ohm, my very famous 80 ohm review. Yeah, that one. That's another good topic. There's so much unit variation with those things, but I'll wait if somebody asks me about that.
Two questions, real quick. Metal first.
Yeah.
First, you look in the camera. I'm bad about that. Can you use your clout with Odyssey since you're a rep and get them to release the?
I love that. I love that intro to that question. That's great.
Somebody is gonna think you actually are when they watch
and,
this later.
Dude, no
you need to get
theme
the
reviews is gonna have a great time
purple.
with this.
You need to get
stream.
them to release the purple Mobius and purple
Oh,
other
yeah.
like purple themed GX.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
that
maybe
was
I'll
a
reach
random
out.
Android.
I'll send the link to this live stream to them. So
Maybe
they
I'll
know
see.
that
I'll
there's
ask
interest.
Sankar if he can
Yeah.
come on the
Yeah.
live stream, and we can chat about that.
There is
Oh,
a
yeah, we should
purple
get him on
Mobius
here.
out in the wild. I have actually
Oh, really?
just beautiful.
No, it exists. Yeah.
It is amazing. The next thing is kind of was talking about this in here is between the Clear and Utopia. Have you guys heard the Clear and Utopia? I know.
Yeah.
I think Andrew, you have. Metal, have you?
I've heard both. No, I
So-
didn't compare them side by side, but I've heard both. Yeah.
If I was going to go apples to oranges between the Clear and Utopia for me, because I actually recently had the Utopia on hand, I would say that the Utopia is more. It's a weird one, man. Like I would actually go with Clear as your general like preference level. If like
Yeah.
just for like an average, the Clear is the clear winner.
Oh no.
But the Utopia is a weird beast. Like I spent a week with that, where like I was like, like I didn't like it. I was like,
Yeah.
this isn't. It was boring. It was drab. It was like, and then all of a sudden, randomly, I had it on my head and it just clicked, and I was like, whoa, this is what it is. Okay. Like it took me a while to really understand where the Utopia really defined audio. Like it hits all the right things, right? Like I don't know if that's for you guys similarly, but like Utopia is like it is that. Like you
Yeah.
can once you get your brain acclimated to what you're hearing, it's like it kind of
Yeah. So I don't actually think that the Utopia is currently still the most detailed headphone.
No.
There's certainly
No.
the LCD like the nanoscale planars, like the
All of
Sosvara
those,
and
yeah.
all those. I think they're better.
Eh,
But
oh no.
one of the
not a
things
It's
yeah.
not
One of the things that the Utopia does still extremely well is if you do listen to music that is, let's say, more like serious audiophile music, like the kind of stuff I like, the Utopia does that probably better than just about anything else for its tonality.
boring music, Utopia is quite excellent. I really like it.
For jazz and classical music with instruments, that kind of stuff, piano tones, that kind of thing.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Its frequency response is really agreeable for that stuff.
But even with EDM and stuff, well, not EDM, but electronic music, I was like, initially
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is garbage. It sounds crap. And then all of a sudden I started like listening, and I was like, wait, no, that was just bad masters. And then once I started hearing good masters of music, I was like, oh, like it was.
It is the one advantage that the Clear. So the Utopia definitely has better detail retrieval than the Clear, but the one advantage that the Clear has, I think, is its tonality for a wider range of music.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the Clear has better bass extension, and it
pretty
also
much what I
is
was gonna
pretty
say,
close to. I don't want to say like fully a Harman shelf, but it's definitely more extended in the bass there. Basically a Harman shelf for the bass, and it also so it doesn't sound as let's say boring for music when you want to have that extra bass shelf there. But for me, like I would take the Utopia every time because I don't actually think like I think. Somebody is we're talking about SBAF before, but I'm gonna reference it again. But somebody on SBAF actually described it in a way that I actually like. They said that the Clear was so much like if the Clear was for detail retrieval was like 50% and the Lear was like 40%, the Utopia would be 90%. It was something like that, where the description was like the difference between the Clear and the Utopia is greater than the difference between the Clear and the Alex and the Lear and all the rest of them. So that, and I kind of agree with that. I think it's a pretty big jump as far as detail goes for the Utopia. At least that's how I hear it. And part of that may also be because of the tonality. So you don't get the bass shelf, which means maybe you do focus on other elements of the mix. But I also think it is just that the solid beryllium driver is able to do more than the aluminum magnesium ones are.
Yeah, I can agree.
Now, the interesting thing about this, at least in my mind, would be like I don't know 100% if the Utopia is using their frameless voice coil that we were talking about earlier. I have no idea if that's what's going on, because the Utopia was developed around the same time as the Lear, right? Now, what I wonder is when they were doing advancements to get to produce the Clear, did they develop this frameless voice coil idea, and would this be transferable to the Utopia, and would this be something that could show up? And then the other thing is, like, with all of those, they're all very easy to drive. They don't take a ton of power. And so what would, I mean, would it be possible to make something like a Utopia that uses a solid beryllium driver that does everything that they're doing, just with, let's say, higher impedance and a frameless voice coil, to get to the next level, to be able to rival the Sysvara and the LCD4? That's, in my mind, like, that's the next question.
Great minds think alike.
It's called the Verite.
I've thought about that quite a bit. Yeah. It's called the Verite. Oh no.
Sorry.
Oh, no. No, yeah, that's what I've always thought. I was like, okay, so for me, the Utopia, I have heard in a quiet environment. I don't know, it just didn't shock me as much as I thought it might for a dynamic headphone. I mean, I owned the HD800 for a long time, and everyone's like, oh, best detail ever possible ever. The Utopia didn't sound like it really out-resolved it by like miles. Like I was floored by those nanoscale planers, and the first time I heard 007 and stuff like that, it's like different category, really. So that's not really fair, but yeah, I mean, it was very good. I think something about the mids is kind of weird on it. I think around 1.5K. I do remember that. And yeah, the treble, the treble is surprisingly agreeable for really good recordings. I agree, but it is a little more genre dependent than the clear. The clear, I straight up like the clear. As long as I'm not listening to like electronic music that's super bright, then it's pretty much fine. But like the Utopia is like it does dissect the music a lot more.
More surgical.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah,
using medical terms to describe.
Yeah. But that's what I was thinking. Like some of these really high-end here's another good one. If you took the Empyrean and you made it higher impedance and much lower sensitivity and reduced the weight of the film on it, what would that be? That would be really cool to have a unique, another like it's sort of like another LCD4, more directly than the Sysvara's kind of sound. But if they could do that, that would be really interesting.
You can, like, in my mind with the Empyrean, that's still one of the most unique headphones ever, because I think you can actually hear the optimization of the trace. Well, like, so for this is one of the things we were talking about earlier, but like, I think the treble detail for that headphone is so much better than the rest of the detail and the rest of the frequency range. Like, it almost sounds like you're listening to two different headphones. Like,
the bass doesn't have the kind of response that I think you would expect for something that costs that much. But the treble is pretty decent.
The crazy part is you can get an HD800 and then SDR mod it, or get an already SDR modded one and then throw it on a bottlehead crack or another tube amp with the HD800, and honestly, I get more wow factor from that than I did the Utopia. If that makes sense, like that initial. So I think what the Utopia does for me personally was that it did everything so right that it didn't have a wow factor, whereas the HD800 has that wide sound stage, that detail, and it has that punch, it has that like, oh, here's this crazy. It did two or three things like that wowed, whereas the Utopia wows across the board, but doesn't actually have anything that really like excels above. I mean, it's such a high performer that it doesn't have.
It does.
It's hard
slam.
to explain.
It does.
Slam. It does slam. That's the thing. Like that's the crazy part. Is it? And once you actually get used to it, it does do it. But it's like, it's. I think it's. What I'm trying to say is like, where most totals will have like one or two or three things, or one even just literally just one thing that they excel at, that people get wowed by. That makes sense. So people will be wowed by like, oh wow, look at that soundstage, or look at that detail. And then, whereas the Utopia is like, it's doing all those things, but it's doing them so well across the board that it's not a wow factor. It's like, oh, this sounds good. If that makes sense,
I agree. I was gonna say, and just to interject, the HD800 has always been kind of that headphone that people will go into a store environment specifically and be like, whoa, this is crazy, because it's really bright, so it brings out all the detail and sibilance, or really good quality recording if it is one. And on top of that, the huge soundstage. But then when you bring it home and you start listening to everything, it's like, Oh my God, what did I just brag? Is this thing is like shooting me in the ear with treble sometimes. That was definitely my experience.
But
So it depends.
that's where the tubes come into play, though. I think the tubes
You have
will
to smooth it out somehow.
smooth it out. Yeah.
I think one of my owner's perspective video on the H800, I still have it, although I am thinking about selling it soon because
Dude,
I mean I don't really use it much.
Dude, every time I do the same thing. Like
But every time you take it out, right? Yeah.
Every time I take it out, I plug it into my
tough.
play crack, and I'm like, I'll listen to it one more time. Like, okay, I'm
I
gonna
know.
say goodbye, and and then all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah,
nope,
I know.
get rid of it, put it back.
I
in the
almost
case.
don't want to listen to it again because I'm not going to list it.
Exactly
so
that
tough.
reason.
Yours is the original HD800 with the SDR mod, though, right?
Mine doesn't have the SDR mod.
Oh, it
Mine
doesn't?
has the SDR.
Okay.
Mine does.
Yours
Yeah.
does? Okay. Yeah, I actually did the SDR mod. Maybe I didn't do it right or something, and it was the original materials and everything.
Yeah, I ordered mine from the
And-
original guy. And
You're
Yes.
you're depreciating the value on your HD.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
I did it, and then it just I don't know. It caused a slight imbalance between the channels for me. It was very small, but it was annoying enough
sell
that
it
it was
now.
like kind of weird, and so I removed it. And
okay.
yeah, no, and then when I
What?
removed it, I had a hilarious time. I think I almost like I unraveled it ended up unraveling in there, and I almost destroyed like the driver or whatever. It's really horrible.
So you can regain
Whoa,
the resale
you really
value
jacked
just by
it.
signing it.
just
Right?
by
You just sign the
Just by
side,
signing.
and then all suddenly it becomes
Not
true
as good
story
as
on the
Axel
bottom.
Grell
story.
signing it, because Max
That's
Settings
true,
brought
yeah.
like his 580 in to get signed by Axel
Here we
Grell.
go.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
there it is. That's
Should
the.
bring a HD820 in to get signed by Axel Grove.
Did Zach
See if it improves
construct the base for that, or?
No, it was a local buddy of mine.
Oh, nice.
Rain Down Thunder. Shout out. Not that I don't think he's listening, but he did two, and I bought his secondary one. And
Oh,
it's
wow, that's really cool.
Coat wood.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, gorgeous build. But yeah, so I did actually build this myself. It was my first real soldering project, and I will
yeah.
go ahead and show you the nightmare that is underneath.
How's the cable management for that one?
Oh, that's horrible. It's a nightmare.
Point to point. Yeah.
yeah.
That's tough.
But I mean, I do have the speedball on there and stuff. But yeah, so I did build it. That was probably one of the most rewarding things I've done in audio, with building my own bottle and crack.
Yeah, I really
That's why I want to build my own headphones.
because that's really fun.
Yeah. But yeah, no, honestly, like that was truly
Yeah.
like you really want to get into something like that. Like I think the ball head crack is probably one of the best things you can do if you have a high impedance, like 300 ohm or above headphone that you really
impedance.
enjoy.
Sorry,
I do that every time. I do it every time.
Somebody asks, or Chase asks, is that a hookah for your headphones?
Maybe.
Oh no.
But yeah, so I mean, like, I think that if you were to get into headphones and you have those ZMFs specifically or HD800, build one of these. It's gonna give you a bigger respect for your hobby.
It's a fun project as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially during this time.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Yeah.
That does sound like it. Oh no! Don't sell us on this now.
Do it.
I was gonna build cables, but then now it's like
Yeah.
apparently that is really time consuming as well. And I'm thinking to myself, I have some time now.
Probably
Yeah.
not as
Can't do anything on the
time-consuming
weekends
as a
anyway,
bottle
so-
head.
Actually,
Yeah.
this is a good question from Dan. I'm gonna butcher your name, my friend. Sorry, Checo. Yes, it did change my perspective on amps, specifically with not these, but like the HD800, the ZMFs, and I think Andrew, you can talk on this, and I think you also meddle with Resolve, but
With the pendant?
with the pendant, like with tubes, it's especially an OTL. Like OTL is even different than the pendant or those. 'Cause it colors the ever living crap out of things, and it just makes it just pops. It just everything.
I need to get into OTL stuff. Like the pendant was
the
enough
output
where I was like,
impedance
I
alone
need to
is
do
going to
this now.
change the frequency
Yeah.
response quite a bit on top of the tube
Yeah.
effects. Yeah.
and you just it's a lovely experience. So yes,
Actually,
I would say
with
that it did change my perspective on amps.
with the output impedance thing, I mean, we're just going back to the Focal Utopia. We talked about this before, but if you have an amplifier that has a ton, like a really high output impedance, you get a ton of bass on the Utopia that it never had before.
Yeah,
so
that's not surprising.
yeah, so like, the difference between like for impacting the frequency response, if you don't want to do EQ, I mean that would be one way to do it. If you want to get something that sounds like a clear but has the detail of the Utopia, but I still don't recommend doing that. I just like in my mind, I think try and make the amplifier as low output impedance as possible. That's just maybe that's wrong-headed to think, but like all of my research so far has kind of pointed in that direction. But then you get into the tubes, and as you guys are saying, it's like
it depends. Like Zach,
suddenly it changes.
The thing is, if Zach is building the ZMFs to sound good with OTLs, which he does tend to use them with, I believe,
he does.
Then
but, I mean, the
might
pendant.
as well try it.
The pendant was I had the one that Andrew had before, and it was, dude. It's, I mean, cheese and wine, my friend. Cheese and.
It is exactly. That's a great way of putting it. It was such a good companion to the Verite. I was like, you know what? If you were to own a system there, Verite with pendant would be near the top of the list for me at least. Obviously, you could probably do better, like with Sysvara and something else, right? But like that idea of the synergy for those two was so good.
Yeah, speaking with Zach a bunch over email, he said that some of my complaints about treble on some of the models is partially because, and he uses a funny term, the treble sounds more like UV or something, ultraviolet. That's how he describes how his headphones. Some of them sound like that.
Quit trying to find the human.
Sounds like sounds like radiation poisoning. Is that?
Oh no, that's not good.
No,
but yeah, they tend to sound a little bit. They can, some of the models, depending on the pads and which one you have and stuff like that, with solid state amps and low output impedance, can sound a little bit aggressive in the treble. That doesn't normally happen when you try it with OTL. So it depends. Yeah.
I need tube amps now. That's a thing.
So and that's the thing, right? Like you get into that.
Telefunken diamonds.
What's your favorite? Someone mentioned in the comments earlier for the question was, what's your favorite crystal or rock to put on audiophile crystal or rock?
Yeah.
That's what ASR thinks of us.
I do listen with my eye.
God. Yeah. I loved even in some of the like conclusions and recommendations, it's like it sounds fantastic, but I don't recommend it. It's like what?
Oh no.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like what the heck? Like
what's the
point
of the day?
What's the point? What's the point of listening to music if it doesn't even sound good out of the equipment that you're listening? Like that's the biggest factor, right? Like it's your.
Well, we only listen to sine waves, anyways,
Yeah.
So.
Well, metal, he did say.
That's why I was trying to anchor this to the music that we listened to at the very beginning. But
there's that. Like at the end of the day, we're all listening to stuff that we enjoy, and that's the biggest factor. At the end of the day, we should be taking into account, right? Like so.
Yeah. All right.
That's why I tried to make that just real quick here. That's why I tried to make that that was my focus when I did my retirement from formal reviews. Was people keep forgetting that sound quality is not necessarily about I want this to sound perfectly correct or perfectly right. The right or correct is what is most fun and enjoyable. If you're not having fun with the hobby, what are you even doing here? Buying these headphones. You should be enjoying the music.
I hate these headphones. I bought them for $3,000 and they suck.
But they measure perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, I got one last question here, and then we should probably wrap it up. So Austin Shiner says, I can never hear a difference between DACs. Could you give an example of two DACs which sound different? So we did cover this earlier a bit, but if you have a DAC with an ESS chip, a Saber DAC, that's going to sound a little bit, let's say, more crisp, and Max says has a bit more glare there to it. If you compare it to something like a Burr Brown, it's much smoother, maybe not quite as crisp and well defined. Those are probably, in my mind, like if I had to compare DACs or have someone compare DACs to be able to identify where the difference lies, comparing those two, like let's say a quintessential ESS Saber based DAC versus a IDSD Micro Black Label, you will probably be able to tell the difference. If you're just listening, especially for treble frequencies, most people I think would be able to tell the difference. What is that, topping or?
Topping.
Yeah.
50.
So like if you go from, like I always say, like with the DAC stuff, if you go from nothing to something, there'll be a big difference already. But if you go from something to something better, the difference is way smaller. So unless you're going from like something that's entry level to something that's really high end, the difference is not substantial.
Yeah, spot on. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Like I think as you scale up, that's when it really starts to fight. Like if you were listening to a Utopia and you're starting to do evaluations with a DAX, that's when you're starting to see those differences.
Yeah, or like the Sysvara or any of the crazy stuff.
Anything, honestly, anything above like a couple $100 for a headphone is probably you're gonna start noticing a difference in the.
Like my favorite DAC is still the Chord Dave. Well, I like the Hugo 2 as well, but it's like if I like. Would I recommend
Flux just
that
got
to somebody?
Very excited.
He did. Yeah.
His lady boners just got. Bing!
I think he had a Dave for the longest time. I'm not sure if he still has it. And he had
I
the
think he was
too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so like it's not something I would necessarily recommend to people who are, say you are just looking to buy something that's, a good value. Like I would go with the Sundara and a hip DAC, and that's all I would really do, or something like that, right? You just get something very or the Magni 3 Heresy and the Modi. Right? It's a great combo.
With a 6XX or something.
And then the next stage up from that, for me personally, I have the Army ADI 2 DAC. I have the Army ADI 2 DAC right here, right now. I haven't actually turned it on in about a month.
Interesting.
Because I have the shit Bifrost 2, and that thing has been like, I just love the way that thing sounds. And then honestly, the other thing I've been listening to a lot of too is the shit Hell, which kind of goes to the heresies and the that kind of level of quality. Like they just did a good job, man. Like at the end of the day,
thing about the Heresy is so as far as I understand, the difference is that the Heresy is the op-amp one and the Magni 3 Plus is the discrete components. And the Heresy was developed specifically to, I don't know if this is true, but like I can see it, right? It's pulling the wool out from under everybody's eyes about ASR and the DAC measurements, right? Because the op-amp based DACs and amps and stuff like that, but op-amp based amps should probably measure better than discrete components anyways. So that doesn't necessarily have any correspondence to whether or not something sounds better.
It's surprising how well, given that, it's really shocking how well the Magni 3 Plus measures considering it's discrete.
Oh, considering it's not,
that's crazy.
Yeah. But so really with the naming scheme, I love that it's called the shit Heresy, because I think that's hilarious. I love it, and I want more stuff like that where it's like, you know what, just.
There's a whole forum dedicated. We'll make it. There's obviously a market there, so do it.
But anyways, okay, so we should probably leave it there. We've been going for a while now, so I want to thank you guys for coming on. And see, any final thoughts from you guys, just in general?
Bifrost 2.
Bifrost 2. Okay, I actually need to try that one. I've heard the original, but I need to get into some of the newer shit audio stuff. Been sleeping on them for a bit.
I have a thought. It's get Shankar on here and get Zach on here. Except I'm not allowed to be there in either situation.
But
no, you're happening. That's happening. We're not gonna. I'm gonna be in the chat. You're gonna be in the video.
Oh no.
It's gonna be gonna take over Tyler's role here for those ones.
No. That's fine actually. It's just funny.
Yeah. Alrighty, well that's going to do it for the stream, guys. Thanks for tuning in. For anybody watching, we'll let it run here so I don't accidentally cut it off a little too early. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.